can take your seats and cease all conversations. Chair recognizes Attorney Brown.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, will request a motion to execute the closed meeting affidavit.
So move.
Okay,
Oh, where's
Gotta-
the clerk?
I know.
Oh.
I'm just holding it in my head right now. I'm waiting on our illustrious clerk to. All right, I know who the motion was from and who the second came from. Oh, I'm not sure. Madam Clerk,
Yes,
it
sir.
was the Mayor Pro Tem rushing me.
He had it covered for me.
He was rushing me.
I take offense to that. What was I rushing about?
And I said rushing, not Russian.
It is 108.
We got a motion from the commissioner from the 4th and a second from the commissioner from the 6th. Closed meeting affidavit. Voting.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Oh, Ms. McKnight, I'm sorry. No, he was trying to vote, yeah. He showed up, yeah. Yeah, showed 10. Okay.
I thought
It's
I-
unanimous with Mr. Johnson and Ms. McKnight voting yes.
I pushed.
We
I
got you,
pushed it.
ma'am. We
We
got
got
you.
it. We got it. At this time, the chair recognizes the attorney for the reading of a motion.
We would like to request a motion, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, a motion to approve a lease, the leasing of 425 Wood Street, Augusta, Georgia, between CRSA Humane Society, Inc. and Augusta, Georgia, on a month-to-month basis.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Voting.
Is that Mr. Clark?
Commissioner from the 9th, Ms. Scott, and then the Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh,
That's one.
I'm pushing this thing, Ms. Bond.
yes, sir. Just keep on. Okay. Ms. McKnight and Commissioner Garrett, were you voting in the affirmative on this? I did. Yes, sir, thank you.
I hit.
Well, it's got you not present here on the screen now, so it's a little conflict going. This motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I believe the buttons are cold. That's probably what it is.
Hearts.
Mrs. Bonner, I pushed
some
mine
cold
twice, so I
hearts
think the
going on
battery.
Chair recognizes the attorney for the reading of a motion.
We request a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the settlement of all claims by William Hurston in the aggregate amount of $75,000 payable as follows. Michael G. Hostelo, LLC, on behalf of William Hurston, further authorizing the administrator to disperse this amount of $75,000, waiving Augusta, Georgia Code of Ordinances sections in conflict for this instance only and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd for motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have Mr. Hassan and Ms. McKnight. Thank you.
Thank you. Voting.
They're on order. Well, I'm sorry, yeah, we was hoping that'd be done by now. Okay. Unanimous.
Mrs. Bonner, I think I might need some batteries for my remote.
I think that's been established. We will take care of that.
So let's do this. I think,
Yeah.
I think it's clear.
The technician, they're working
They're
on
working
it.
on it now. They are working on it now. All right, Chair recognizes the attorney for the reading of a motion.
We request a motion to authorize the administrator to approve RPAs with salary adjustments above 15% in connection with the retention increase program in the Augusta Utilities and Augusta Engineering Departments within their respective FY 2022 budgets.
Chair recognizes Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Voting.
It's unanimous.
Wow. Chair recognizes the attorney for the reading of a motion.
We request a motion to approve the adoption of a resolution authorizing the settlement of all claims by the Augusta Press in the aggregate amount of $3,500 payable as follows. The Augusta Press and Hull Barrett PC as its attorney, further authorizing the administrator to disperse the amount of $3,500, waiving Augusta, Georgia Code of Ordinances sections in conflict for this instance only and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th, State Inquiry.
And I apologize, Mr. Mayor, and to the attorney as well. Did you state from where the source of that is going to come from? Is that part, does that need to be done, or was that done? And I missed it.
I think that, I believe the administrator has already been instructed. However,
Okay.
in addition to that motion, those funds will be funded by the sheriff, Richmond County Sheriff budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Voting.
We need a motion. Who did that?
Second.
Oh, that was Mr. Franham and Ms. McKnight. Thank you. Okay.
Chair recognizes Attorney Brown for the reading of a motion.
Well, we need to vote. We got to vote.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, where you?
He keeps rushing me.
You done left?
Voting. Voting.
It's unanimous. Leave that sugar alone. You want the sugar? Leave that chocolate cake. It's unanimous. I believe that's it, Mr. Mayor. Is that it, Mr. Attorney?
No,
You got
we
two
have
more.
two more.
Uh,
Chair recognizes Attorney Brown for a reading of a motion.
Thank you, sir. We request a motion to approve, to adopt a resolution authorizing the settlement of all claims by Justice Germany in the aggregate amount of $16,500 payable as follows to Michael Hostelo, LLC, on behalf of Justice Germany, further authorizing the administrator to disperse the amount of $16,500, waiving Augusta, Georgia Code of Ordinances, sections in conflict for this instance only and for other purposes.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Voting.
It's unanimous.
Chair recognizes the administrator for the reading of a motion.
Yes, motion to approve the commitment of $250,000 in SPLOST 7 funds for road improvements at Jimmy Dice Parkway and Franklin Harper and the Jimmy Dice and George Franklin intersections, contingent upon the commitment of Project ES to invest at least $30 million, including a grocer tenant. Further, it is contingent upon rezoning of the property to meet the needs of the proposed development.
Motion to approve. Second.
Voting. Everybody suspend. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th. State your inquiry.
I don't know whether it's appropriate now, just asking the question, should we be saying, recaptured, or what, recapture SPLOST 7 funds?
Adjust that to say funds from SPLOST 7 overages.
Okay, thank you.
Voting.
It's unanimous.
I believe, Attorney Brown, those are all that are before us at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk. I think I heard resoundingly that they are ready for committee meetings.
All right. I'd like to call Public Services Committee to order. Madam Clerk, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, sir. We had some, I don't believe.
Okay. If there's no questions from the body, I'd like to consent the following agenda items, please. Number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 12.
So moved.
Number 8, 9, and 12.
That is correct.
And who did that motion come from, sir?
Commissioner Mason and Commissioner Johnson.
Okay.
Got a motion and a second. Please vote.
But the screen isn't up yet.
Do you want us to do roll call?
Are you going? He's okay. Yeah, give him a minute. Give him a minute. He's got it. Hand me my bag. Okay, let me. Where is my committee? Okay.
Do you want me to do roll call?
No, we got it. Appreciate it. We gonna try it?
Okay. All right, voting.
Mr. Franham.
Yes, ma'am. And Commissioner Garrett must have voted again. Thanks.
We're good? Okay, all right. That motion carries unanimously.
All right. Madam Clerk, we're going to go to agenda item number 1, please.
Okay, Ms. Walton is here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We have 2 items before you today. The first item is an existing location, alcohol number 22-09. It's a request by John D. Weir for a retail packaged beer and wine license to be used in connection with Noble Jones, LLC, located at 816 Cotton Lane. This application has been approved by the Sheriff's Office and Planning and Development. Do we have any objectors to this alcohol petition?
None noted. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
John David Ware, 801 Montesana Avenue, apartment D5, Augusta, Georgia, 30904.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Agenda item number 2, please.
The next item is a new location, alcohol number 22-08. It's a request by Manpreet Kaur for a retail package liquor, beer, and wine license to be used in connection with AM Liquor Store located at 2545A Peach Orchard Road. This application has been approved by the Sheriff's Office and Planning and Development. Do we have any objections to this alcohol petition?
None noted. Ma'am, please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manpreet, and my address is 551 Blue Ridge Crossing, Evans, Georgia, 30809. Thank you very much.
Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Ms. Bonner, my batteries are being changed right now.
Yes, sir.
I vote yes.
I beg your pardon?
I vote yes, but my batteries are being
Oh,
changed.
okay. All right, we got you. Thank you. It's unanimous.
All right, agenda item number 3, please.
Item number 3 is an update from Code Enforcement on the status of the Code Enforcement issues, concerns relative to Azalea Park Apartments.
Commissioner Clark, this is your agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you speak into the mic?
For some reason, my mic is not coming on.
Yeah, we hear you better now. Thank you.
Still not coming up in queue.
We hear you, sir.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I brought this item up for the committee because we were supposed to get a year-end report and we didn't have a meeting, so we kind of missed that year-end report, and the problems still continue with this property. And I'm mighty afraid that we're going to end up with a tragedy in that location if something is not done quickly. I also realize that we can't go in and empty out all of the apartments because citizens have nowhere to go. I would like to have an update from the property owners and ask a few questions about what their intent is, how far along they are with their renovations. Do they have empty apartments that have been renovated that they can move tenants into? And I'm not talking about new tenants, I'm talking about existing tenants. So is there anybody here that can speak to that?
All right. So first I'm going to ask the administrator who's going to speak to this issue.
Yeah, so did not receive a request to have the owners here, but I think we can have them follow up at the next, either at the next commission meeting or the next committee cycle, whichever is the preference of the commission. But we do, I mean, our staff has definitely been working diligently on this. So if there are some high-level questions that maybe from the staff perspective, interim director is ready to answer those.
Okay. All right, let's start with that then. Would you like to give an overview first of where we're at, and then Commissioner Clark can ask some questions?
Definitely. Well, the owners of Azalea Park did submit the assessment. It was a 778-page assessment. It did come in on time. That would be December 21st. That was when they were supposed to submit it. We have combed through that assessment, and in combing through it, we see that there have resolved all of the problems that were before you in September. So there are no outstanding problems left from September. What we saw, though, was a slate of new problems. Those new issues that need to be addressed have not reached the point of life, safety, health code issues. What we see is that they, in that 778-page assessment, they didn't prioritize it the way we would like to. So as a staff, we're meeting with them to go back and prioritize the work that needs to be completed.
Okay, and how many issues, you said September, the ones where, how many issues are we looking at now?
In September, we had 24 issues that were just around life, health, safety, rodent. Right now, we are at, I want to be sure I say it right. Right now, we have 53 maintenance code violations out of 162 units.
Okay. And then you said you're meeting with, you have a scheduled meeting soon, I guess that's my
We had to
question.
have time to go through that assessment, so we're going to schedule a meeting for them next week.
Next week?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm gonna go to back to Commissioner Clark and then to Commissioner John. Commissioner Clark, do you have any questions for the director?
Yeah. Thank you for coming today, and I would like for the owners or their representatives to speak with us next week at the commission meeting, if you can put that on the agenda, please. But, 53 code violations out of 162 units, that seems like an awful lot. And then, I kind of have to ask the question, what do you call a life or a death risk? When you have an electrical fire starting in a wall, I kind of think that's a life and death risk.
So
when you have raw sewage leaking out onto carpets and the tenants are walking around in a soggy carpet and mold all over the place, I think that's a health risk. So I'm not exactly, sure what you're saying when you say it's not a life and death issue, because I'm certain that the people that are living in those situations think it is. And we're not here to serve the owners of that property. We're here to cooperate with them. But we're here to serve the community and the people that rent those apartments. And I think we need to step up the game here. I think some action needs to be taken, but I'm interested in hearing from my other commissioners, so I'll yield the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to follow up on anything?
Sure. In regards to the issues that were surrounding the sewage, that has been resolved. That was resolved last year prior to December 21st. So we don't have any outstanding issues with regards to sewage on floors or anything of that nature. When we talk about the types of violations at the 53 out of the 160 units, one of the things you want to think about is maintenance. Say, for instance, your light in your kitchen is flickering. That still comes in as a work order. We don't consider that a high priority or a life safety issue. We have such situations where they have done a renovation and put a hole in the wall to access something. They came back, put that drywall up, they did mud and tape around it. That still is a work order. So we're clocking and tracking all of these activities. As far as the severity of them, we don't have any right now that we have been made aware of that are tracking in the way of sewage on floors in people's residences and things of that nature. We don't have any knowledge of electrical issues that are causing fires at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. You said that there are 53 as of December, or did you say 53 as of?
December 10th, 2021, we had 53 out of 162 units to have open code violations.
So that's 53 new, or is that 53 included with the 20-something that was previous?
New.
Those are 53 new. Okay.
Yes, because we did a sweep. We went back and did a sweep on December 9th. And from that sweep, we acquired these new cases.
But the sewage and the water issues, all that has been resolved to your knowledge?
To our knowledge, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hassan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Collins, how you do, ma'am?
I'm doing well, sir.
In terms of the 53 that you just mentioned, are the owners aware of those 53?
Yes, sir. We opened a case and we sent written notification to the owners.
So was there any response back and what their intentions was around it? Or you haven't met the deadline to respond?
We had a meeting with them on January 7th, the code enforcement manager, in which they are aware of those issues. Some of them are able to be rolled into the timeline for the assessment that they gave. So they captured some of the same things that we captured. But we still have to give them roughly 30 business days to come into compliance.
From where you sit, Ms. Carter, do you feel that they're headed in the right direction, or is just too early to tell?
We definitely see progress. Like I said earlier, we would like to see them prioritize better the list as far as what's coming out of the assessment that needs to be addressed. But the progress between November and now is definitely evident.
Okay, Commissioner Clark just made mention that he'd like to see them possibly be here, but to be here the next meeting. Do you think between now and then that can be arranged and that priority list can be there so they can address them moving forward, how they're going to approach the list?
I think if the next meeting is in 2 weeks, yes. At the next committee cycle, yes.
No, you're talking about the commission meeting, which is next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Then,
you did say commission meeting, didn't you? I'm sorry.
Yes. But we can do committee.
Committee, you're good with the
He
committee?
said committee's fine. I just want to make sure what he was talking about. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I realize you can't speak specifically for the company, so it's unfortunate that they are not here today. A few months ago, I thought we were kicking the can down the road, and I still feel like we're doing that. Progress is subjective in terms of those that are living within these conditions. So I offer this on December the 10th, which is what the report goes through. You said there was 53 new incidents, none of which, in your opinion, were quote unquote life-threatening?
That we know of.
That you know of, right. That's why it's important for us to talk to them. Secondly, December 10th, that was over a month ago, and I realized that was supposed to be for our end of the month, December. But then again, you said you met on January the 7th as well. Now, did you get any information or any idea in terms of any numbers that may have increased from December 10th to the January 7th meeting that you had?
So the January 7th to December 10th time frame, the January 7th was a walkthrough to look at the buildings and the grounds. So those numbers did actually change, and they resulted in, whereas a building could have 4 or 5 work orders, some of those went down 1, 2, 3, that way. So a building that previously had 5, but most of that January 7th was the grounds and the buildings in and of themselves, not individual units, because we ran into the problem, again, of accessing units. They try to give proper notice, and the tenant needs to usually be there. So in January 7th, we didn't go in the units. We did the grounds, because they had quite a few issues on the grounds outside of the individual units.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I would say is, at this point, I wish they'd be here next week versus 2 weeks from now. But the bottom line is that any new infractions, I would say, from the December 10th time frame be inclusive in whatever is brought forward at the next meeting, whenever that may be. But I'd like to have those numbers included in there as well. We've been dealing with this for a moment. Do you have any information in reference to the fires that have gone on out there?
Typically, the fire department references the cause of the fire. We do know that the fires were non-mechanical, meaning in and of itself that the building itself didn't cause the fire. Some type of action taken by a human being probably caused the fire, but we are not authorized to say, that gets a little bit out of my...
Sure, fully understand.
Good?
Not really, but...
I know, yeah, I agree. Administrator?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one thing, because I know we threw out that number of 53 infractions on 162 units, and so it might be important to kind of characterize that appropriately and highlight that, one unit could have multiple infractions. Sure. I know that the commission is well aware of that, but just for our public, that breaks down to an average, because one unit may have 1, another may have 7, and so on and so forth. So that's just important to make sure we include that information.
And you can bring that information to us next time as well in 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Commissioner Dennis Williams?
Yeah, I was just
Microphone, please.
I was gonna just simply say that I've been over to the area quite a few times in the last couple of months, and they are progressing, as from a layman's term, with the area and keeping it clean on the outside and repairing that raw sewage issue that they had, and also with just the several of the units. So there is some improvement over in that area.
Thank you, sir.
And,
All right. Go ahead.
And our code enforcement department is doing a good job at keeping a watchful eye on the progress over there. I don't want the public to sit here and think that we're not doing our part in making sure or doing what we can to making sure this management company operates effectively in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason?
Yes. So let me just say it like this. Given the location where it's located and the individuals that it affects, I just don't think we'd be having this issue this long. And so that's why I feel like, from a standpoint of holding people accountable that are receiving funds, that people's living standards ought to be what they are regardless of their social or economic status. And so, yeah, I want to see the owners again soon, real soon, because it's too long, too many infractions. And this, like you say, Mr. Commissioner Williams, this is not a knock on code enforcement in any way, shape, or form. But we do have to hold people accountable, especially when they're receiving funds. If they're receiving funds and they have no repercussions, then they'll continue to do the same things that they've always done and feel like they can get away with it. It's time for them to pay the piper. And what I mean by pay the piper, just simply for folks that live there to be able to live at a standard that's appropriate and not substandard, and get services done in a reasonable manner so that they can get those items that are necessary fixed. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, sir. Well said. Ms. Bonner, if we can put this on the agenda in 2 weeks on the committee cycle.
Okay.
And then can I get a motion to receive?
That will be February the 8th, I believe.
Receive his information.
Motion to receive his information.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to receive his information. This will be back in 2 weeks with lots of more details. Voting. We hadn't voted. I think. I thought we voted.
It's unanimous.
Ms. Bonner, I'd like to, as we get to 10 and 11, the last two, like do them as companion items. And before we call up Mr. Jeremy, just remember that we do have a Parks and Recs workshop in the next 60 days as we talk about this. It's going to be great information for that as well. So if we can start with number 10, and then I'll turn it over to the commissioners after number 10.
Okay, so
Thank you.
we're going to address these as companion items?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Item 10 is Mr. James Germany regarding the Sue Reynolds Community Center. Item 11 is to discuss the Sue Reynolds Community Center requested by Commissioner Catherine McKnight and John Clark.
Okay, if Mr. Germany can come forward, please. Mr. Germany, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
James Germany, 4316 Reagan's Lane, Augusta, Georgia.
Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and commissioners. On June 7th, 2021, I scheduled a meeting at the Sue Reynolds Community Center to discuss the lease agreement made on 1 April 2012 between the City of Augusta and the Augusta Arsenal Soccer Club. The term of the lease between the parties started on 1 April 2012 and expired on 31 December 2021 and pertained to the properties at 3824 Maddox Road and 1345 Community Park Road. I invited to that meeting Commissioners McKnight and Clark, as well as Parks and Recreation Director Maurice McDowell, and many tax-paying members from the community. At that meeting several months ago, I presented to Commissioners McKnight and Clark, along with Mr. McDowell, and the many taxpayers that were present, the prospect of not renewing the portion of the contract between the city and the soccer club pertaining to Sioux Reynolds Community Center and all adjacent property at the 1345 Community Road address, and bringing the center and the park fully back under the direction and operation of the city, and allocate the proper funding to make this dinosaur of a facility into a facility that could be used by the many residents of the Bel Air, Jimmy Dice, Gordon Highway area. I shared my vision with all that were present of a multi-function facility that could be used for community meetings, senior citizen involvement, rentals, and etc. That could also be a walking track, gazebos, grills, splash pad, dog park, and a playground for the area kids. Everyone present was very receptive. Some may say that this request is a very small blimp on the overall problems that this commission is facing, such as infrastructure, homelessness, blight, and the pandemic. In terms of the pandemic, it has caused higher levels of stress that has affected the mental health of not only city employees, but also residents of this great city. How ironic, now that we as a city have an opportunity to create a park facility at the existing Sioux Reynolds location that would provide the citizens of Augusta with additional means of relieving the higher levels of stress that the pandemic has caused. Park and recreation professionals have stated that good mental health is often related to having access to the outdoors and green space. Research over the years has shown that when people are more stressed, anxious, and socially isolated, as we are right now due to the pandemic, having access to parks, trails, and natural areas become even more important. More time spent in parks and green space can help individuals fight against mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and stress. Making sure that all people have access to parks and outdoor programming is a critical way to increase these positive effects on mental health and the quality of life for the citizens of this great city of Augusta, Georgia. In closing, it is my prayer that this distinguished body will move forward with finding a funding source for the Sioux Reynolds Community Center and Park and afford the citizens of the Bel Air, Jimmy Dice, and Gordon Highway area a community park and center that we can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bobby Williams?
Well, I just wanted to say, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'll try to, John can't hear me. We do have a workshop in about 60 days, and I think Mr. McDowell was talking about repurposing some of the parks. So I think this falls within that window. So I think we need to maybe invite Mr. Germany back when we start our workshops or what have you. But I think at this time it's kind of premature because we do have that workshop, and we can take that into consideration at that time.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Germany before I go to Commissioner McKnight? Anybody have a question for Mr. Germany?
Well, yeah, that's what mine was.
You were? Go ahead. Commissioner Mason, go ahead.
Okay. All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Germany.
Hello, sir.
I think what you bring up is certainly a good idea for that area and for the community. No question about that. As was stated, we do have this workshop happening in 60 days, but what I would like to not happen is that we lose focus in these next 60 days and continue to do those things that you see that are appropriate, so that when we come to the table, we'll have good information. And simply because that discussion is going to happen 60 days from now does not mean that we can't have an interim discussion in the process. And so I, for one, am glad that you're standing there so I can hear what's happening and what needs to happen. I'm very familiar with that area. It's the front part of Fort Gordon as well, which a lot of our military veterans and active duty folks live out in that area as well, that are always looking for a place to recreate, if you will. And so I think the concept in itself is an excellent concept, and I would hope that we could find the appropriate source, even if we're repurposing or finding a funding source with whatever we may have left over in the till to start assisting in this process. Now, what I did hear you say, though, is a number of great things in terms of that, the vision. Now, whether or not all of that can come at one time is a whole nother ballgame, because that increases the obviously the price. So there may be some starting points or some milestones in some of those things. What I would say to you in the interim, looking at in terms of the vision, and as you talk with the community, what are some of the prioritize some of those things that you would like to see there? Is a splash pad on the top priority, or is it something that would be secondary or tertiary? You see what I'm saying? Kind of go down that road. Give us something to work with so that we can work with you, so that you don't get a big no trying to start out this process. You with me?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark, and then Commissioner McKnight.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Germany, it's awfully good to see you. And
Same here, sir.
As always, we have a great deal of fun working with you. Whenever you need us, we try to be there for you in your community. We did have a good meeting at Sewer Reynolds pertaining to this, and it was out, and we were looking for the land available, one of the soccer parks. I think there was some land behind it that was available probably. I think the biggest problem that we've run into is the funding and where it's coming from. Now, with the realignment of what we're looking at on our workshops with the parks, we may be able to repurpose some funding there. And it's just like the other commissioners have said, need to get a priority of what we're going to go for first as far as Sewer Reynolds is concerned. Do we go for the building first? Do we leave it? Do we, go for a walking track, a ball field? What do we go for first? That's what you need, and we asked you to bring to the table specifics of what we can go for first, and then we look for the funding with that. Having said that, the community out that way is we all have been fighting over the issue. That's the fastest growing part of Augusta, Richmond County. That area, in fact, that we've had to deny some building because we're outbuilding the existing infrastructure. And so we're trying to build responsibly. That area is ripe for a community center and a park because of the population and its proximity to Fort Gordon and the area out there. So I think that it would do well for you to be a big part of the workshop with us and bring it back to what your community wants first. And I think we can get somewhere.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner McKnight.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming today, Mr. Germany. As you and I know, and I'm going to keep this short because my colleagues have already emphasized what needs to happen. We're going to have a workshop, and so we will be able to discuss this in the workshop. However, I just want to make sure that people understand that right when I came on board on the commission, and even before I came on board, I mentioned about in the area, since it is, we know, the fastest growing area of District 3 and of Richmond County, perhaps, that I, and Mr. McDowell knows this, and Mr. Germany, as well as a lot of other people, that I have really advocated from the very get-go to do something with Sewer Reynolds, to make it into a nice community center. I've heard people say that, District 3 doesn't have a community center. Well, we do, and we want to make sure that we get it fixed and done up right. And so everything you've said today is also something that we have talked about together that we would like to see. And so I want you to be able to come back and be a part of this, but we'll do our workshop and see what we can do to move forward with getting us a community center. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Son.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak with Mr. Director McDowell, please.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, but don't let me misquote you. My question will be something I believe that you said. So if I'm correct the numbers, just let me know that's not correct. I think you mentioned that the contract expired December 31st, 21. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. McDowell, where are we on this lease with the soccer?
Well, let me correct the record on that. So you have one parcel, but it's separate leases. So the Sioux Rental Community Center itself, lease did, I would say agreement with the soccer club did expire on December 31st of 2021. The entire soccer area, that lease was a 40-year lease that started in 1996. So we have roughly 15 more years on the soccer part itself. The Sioux Rental Community Center is now back under Parks and Recreation because they did not, according to the agreement, send a letter to the director 6 months out saying they would like to renew that lease, nor have they taken any action to renew that lease with the Sioux Rental Community Center itself. However, they still have, according to our agreements, the right to manage the soccer fields and the soccer park itself because that's a 40-year lease. At least I would say a 40-year agreement with Arsenal to manage that facility.
And what is the benefit? I mean, I know it's a 40-year lease, so I'm just asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the benefit of them having it under the auspices right now? What is the benefit to us?
Operation, because they do have a soccer program already in place. And I think that was the intent originally of that agreement. The Arsenal owned that property up until the city purchased it back in 1996. And once the city purchased that 29.28 acres of land, they immediately entered into an agreement for the 40-year lease agreement for them to actually operate it because they did have a soccer program. And the Parks and Recreation Department at the time did not have a soccer program. And so because of that program they have, because of those soccer fields, they've been able to operate and maintain that particular area.
So are they also the ones that we contribute $50,000 a year to? Or just the 40-year lease, or just the one that was managing the facility?
They manage the facility, so we don't directly give them dollars. What we do is we also assist them with maintenance. We provide the equipment for them to maintain the grass cutting out there. We take care of all of the utilities for the Sioux Rental Community Center. Any improvements, capital improvements, the city of Augusta does all those improvements as well.
Okay, in closing, I just want to make sure, because I'm a little confused. I want to separate, what do we do for the ones who have the 40-year lease currently? Do we anything for them? Do we provide cleanup and cutting grass and everything for them as well?
Right, it's the same group, it's just a separate lease.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yes, we help provide and offset the maintenance costs and any capital improvements costs to those facilities for their programming and for their programming needs.
So how much land is there that for what Mr. Germany is talking about? Let's step away from what the Arsenal has from the grounds per se. So how much property does they have direct access to?
I think it's a little over 2 acres, close to 3. I think it's somewhere between 2.5, and then the soccer park itself is 29.28 acres.
So when they're having the soccer park, does that exclude the public, or does the soccer park has to be, you have to talk to Arsenal to conduct business on the property?
Typically you do. Again, it's a public facility, so if someone want to go out and play soccer, yes, but there's also a facility there. So if someone wanted to make use of that facility.
But the facility is different now. So
I'm not talking about Sioux Rental, but there's actually a facility on the soccer part itself as well.
Okay.
And so if you did want to have some activity at that facility, I think it's a pavilion area out there as well, you would have to go through Arsenal because we do have a contractual agreement with them. And prior to the expiration of that agreement, you would have to go through Arsenal for Sioux Rentals, but you don't have to do that now because that agreement has since expired.
Okay. All right, anything you want to add to that? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. For clarity purposes, there's 2 different properties. The 3824 Maddox Road is the actual soccer field. I think it's about 7 soccer fields located at that particular address. And at the 1345 Community Park Road, you got the center there. Also, you have the Sioux Rentals Park that also consists of about 2 fields, soccer fields. So my question is, the soccer fields at the 1345 Community Park address, are they also a part of the 3824 Maddox Road soccer fields, Mr. McDowell?
So how those agreements were written, again, the Sioux Rental one, as you stated earlier, commenced in 2012. The one for the soccer park itself started in 2016. And that started with a purchase from the city of Augusta to Arsenal. So all of the soccer fields are considered part of that 29.28. There is some land that we haven't gotten clarity on in terms of ownership, and I think it's almost like a wetland area. I don't think it's even conducive to build on. It's part of that Sioux Rental property that puts it up close to 3 acres. But again, I think it was an old retention pond back there, so it's not really viable for any type of construction there. But the Sioux Rental Community Center itself, that entity is separate from all of the soccer fields. The Arsenal controls all of those soccer fields, and that's how the agreement was written, for them to control all of those soccer fields, as separate from the community center, or what we call Sioux Rentals.
So, and I'm gonna close after this, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, to my colleagues. So what you're saying, Mr. McDowell, is that the broader contract that Arsenal have for 40 years, it actually reaches over into the other contract that expires and absorb those 2 soccer fields as well?
So the original agreement.
Is that your question? Yes. Okay, that's
right. So that agreement has Arsenal in control of all of the soccer fields. That's really what Arsenal's in the business for. Sioux Rental, as a community center, because of location, back in 2012, when that agreement was originated, they allowed Arsenal to also control that community center because it did have the original 2 soccer fields on it. Once the city purchased that land from Arsenal, which they owned at the time, then it consolidated all of the soccer fields for them to control those soccer fields. And again, to Mr. Germany's point, up until the end of last year, they also controlled the Sioux Rental Community Center.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like for one thing to happen, Mr. Chairman, and that's to get those contracts, if they don't have it, to the attorney, and try to make a distinction. Is there a distinction, or does it pan out the way Mr. McDowell is saying? That's not the question either, just an interesting dynamics there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can we get that as a part of the workshop?
That's fine with me. I just want some clarity on it from the attorney.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dennis Williams?
May I speak to the director, sir?
Sure. Pull your mic a little bit closer to you.
When we began the budget process for this year, didn't we outline and indicate the recreation services and community centers that required some work and improvement and such, correct?
I understand your question correctly. I think the answer is yes.
Yes. So was Sioux Rentals in this year's budget for any type of action to be received?
No, not outside of its normal operating budget.
Right. So therefore, if there's any progress or creating a new project for the Sioux Rentals facility, we need to be looking at putting that in our next year's budget, correct?
Correct, or identifying some other revenue streams to tackle what we are asking, or what at least the community is asking for.
Right. But as I recall, we barely had enough to take care of what we had on our list already.
Fair point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I want to thank Mr. Jeremy. I want to thank Mr. Director McDowell for the great dialogue, and then we'll follow back up with each party on when the workshop is and any of that information that was requested from Commissioner Hassan. Can I get a motion to receive his information?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Voting, please, committee.
It's unanimous.
And that concludes public services. Thank you, committee. On to administrative services.
Well, yeah, Bobby, you slow now. Ms. Bonner, are you ready? Administrative services call to order?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Are there any additions or deletions?
No, sir.
Okay, if the committee doesn't have any objections, I'd like to consent item number 2 and item number 5. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Voting, Ms. Bonner.
Okay, we have Ms. Scott, Mr. Frenner, Mr. Bobby Williams, and Mr. Hassan.
Oh, I thought I matched it. I'm sorry.
Ms. Scott, Mr. Frenner, Mr. Bobby Williams, and Mr. Benson.
I had mine.
Yeah, we. Rapid response, I love it.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Ms. Bonner, I want to ask the administrator something before I that. Mr. Administrator, we got about 4 items on here left, 5 items, and all of them seem to be a presentation of short. I'd like to start out, because I have no way of knowing which one is going to be the shortest. And so if you can make a suggestion to me that we can just work from the shortest presentation to the longest presentation.
Yeah.
And so you can tell me what you think I should start
Yes,
next.
and so I wanted to start off by saying, you know, this information is fairly detailed, but the bulk of it is simply the capital projects presentation, the one that is in PowerPoint format.
So-
It says, oh, you're talking about?
Yes, I'm trying to figure out which
yeah.
one. You got 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7.
Oh, so 3, I think is probably the shortest because it's just an update on the $3 million that Augusta received. And I think we're the only ones in the state, if I'm not mistaken on that. That's probably the shortest one.
Okay.
And then
I'm gonna go with 4 after that. I saw the Bonnell up.
Got it.
So I'm gonna go with. I'm sorry, Mr.
And I would tell you number 7 is likely the shortest. I think you as a commission have already received that information. I think we had some, there was a lot of talk about the Vax Up Augusta program, whether we would reach the 10,000 or not. It's just simply we made it ahead of schedule and under budget. And so I'm not sure there needs to be much discussion other than, you know, a thank you to the community for participating and a thank you to the commission for allocating those funds.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bond, I'm gonna go back to item number 3, please.
Okay. Item number 3 is to receive as information an update from the Housing and Community Development Department on Augusta, Georgia lead-based paint hazard reduction program.
How you doing today? Can you introduce yourselves, please? And what department?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee, other members of the commission. My name is Darrell Grant from Housing Community Development Department. I am your lead hazard control supervisor.
And I am Deputy Director Shantia Lewis.
Okay. All right, y'all can go ahead.
Program description: the lead hazard control program is aimed at assisting qualified homeowners and landlords to improve the safety and dwelling by remediating lead hazards. The program goals are to provide a health and safe, decent living environment for the Augusta residents. Our goal is to, with this program, is to address at least 120 homes. Program activities: owner-occupied, acquisition rehab, and residential rehab. So the goal is actually to address homes for those that actually own their home and maybe they're renting their homes. But the thing with renting their home is we are looking to provide a 5-year, 20% forgiveness by the money that we put in. Participant qualifications: Augusta, Georgia housing unit, or Augusta, Georgia housing units constructed before pre-1978. This will support anyone below the AMI, 80% below the AMI. You must have a child you must have a child under 6 residing in the home in a single or multifamily unit, primarily in your primary place of residence. Georgia-led grant hazard reduction program. HCD and Department of Health was awarded a little over $3 million. The goal for this program is actually to address any lead hazard in homes that's built pre-1978. Lead hazards actually is one of the biggest issues concerning dwellings for children under the age of 6, primarily because lead attacks the nervous system, and the body sees lead as calcium. So instead of your body fighting lead, it absorbs it, and it also is stored in your bones. So as you get older and you have an injury, that lead actually seeps back into your system. Partnerships. We're a partnership with Augusta Partnership for Children, EPD, Environmental Protection Division, and the Healthy Homes Division of Georgia Department of Public Health. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. So how, right now you mentioned homes that was built, I assume, before 1978. So at this particular time, how are you attracting participants? Are people being notified and they're making contact with you all or one of these other partners that you have, or you're out actively seeking participants for the program?
Yes, sir. We are now in the process of actively seeking potential residents to be qualified for the program. We also are working off of our list of residents that have applied for our programs and services within our Augusta, Georgia Housing and Community Development Rehab Program. The program actually launches January 31st, and we are pushing forward with marketing after we've informed the commission first.
So what do you mean of marketing?
So we're in the process of, we've released an ad to announce the program. We actually have a press release that's launching. We have flyers, and then we have what's called targeted marketing, where we're sending out postcards to residents that are within Augusta, Georgia, whose homes are built pre-1978, and target districts based off the grant that was supported.
Okay. Any questions, any of my colleagues? Commissioner Scott?
The program, is it target just for homeowners or for public housing as well?
So it's for homeowners or tenants who are residing in the home where the property owner would qualify based on ownership of the home, because it's located in Augusta, Georgia and built pre-1978, but the tenants and even property owners, whichever situation, have to be low income and must have a child that is 6 years or under residing into the home or frequents the home on an ongoing basis. So the Public Housing Authority, if that's what you're referring to, this program they would not qualify for this program.
Any other question from any of my colleagues? Can I get a motion to receive this information?
Second.
Voting, Ms. Bonner. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Is it coming up, Ms. Bonner? Yes, sir. Okay.
It's unanimous.
Okay. You got another rapid response, huh?
Yes, sir.
Item number 4, Ms. Bonner.
Item number 4 is a motion to receive as information an update from the Redwood Housing regarding new ownership safety plan improvements and upkeep related to the Bonaire Apartments.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, other members of the commission, we're here today just to give an update on from Redwood Housing, and for the record, Housing and Community Development Department was introduced to Redwood Housing about 1.5 years ago. Since that time, we've had several conversations in regards to the aesthetics as well as to the safety, as well as I've had shared in several conversations with the Office of the Administrator as well as 3 or 4 commissioners. So today, I'm just here to sort of introduce Nick Baum, who's the director of Redwood Housing. For the record, City of Augusta, HCD, has no financial interest in Bonaire and or Richmond Summit. We also neither have a partnership interest at this time in Bonaire or Richmond Summit. But what we felt that it was, from several conversations of discomfort, we felt that it was impediment that at this time we bring Redwood Housing and their principals here to have a conversation for them to introduce themselves as well as to speak to the short, mid, and long-term goals of safety and renovation. So I'll yield and turn it over to Nick Bourne.
Thank you, Hawthorne. It's great to be here, seeing everybody today. Thank you for having me to come present. So this slide here is just Bonaire, and I know Commissioner Johnson will also talk to Richmond Summit, which is another property we acquired, and it's great to see you, Commissioner McKnight. Just a quick overview on Redwood. We're a mission-driven organization focused on the preservation of affordable housing throughout the country. Our goal is to raise the standard of living for low and moderate income seniors and families throughout the country. We're dedicated to preserving and meaningfully improving the current stock of affordable housing throughout the United States. We've assembled a passionate team of advocates for affordable housing with a deep knowledge of all different types of developments. We're currently in 12 different states and also the District of Columbia. Now just onto Bonaire in particular. Short-term steps we've taken in terms of increasing the security and safety of the property. We have made contact with the Sheriff's Office and Lieutenant William Adams. We've provided him with contact information for on-site staff and set up an introductory meeting between the staff and the lieutenant. We provided him with all residents on the leases, and we've established a banned list on individuals who are on site. The police are able to use that to police the property and make sure that visitors who are not allowed to be on site are kept off the site. We've provided them with the house rules as well, so they are informed as to what rules are a violation of property regulations and what allows them to be escorted off the site as a result. We've also had calls on incident reports from the police and anything that goes on at the property, ensuring that management can actively work to evict residents. We have had a resident evicted recently due to noncompliance with house rules. This will be an ongoing process, of course, just facilitating that dialogue and communication between the local police force and the property staff. Middle term steps, there's some back and side doors, which currently can be left open. We are replacing them with an alarm that'll sound for anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes if they are tampered with. And we will make sure that we have procured bids for the installation of these new doors, and we will keep you all updated as the work progresses. Similarly, at Richmond Summit, just to reference, there's a back door there that is secured currently, but we actually have it on back order just due to the pandemic. We don't have the doors yet to be in stock, but it will be installed as soon as we receive it. Other middle term steps we're taking on here: setting up ongoing meetings between the property staff and the Sheriff's Department, planning for the upcoming renovation and soliciting feedback. Obviously, this is part of that from community stakeholders regarding safety improvements. And we've investigated some other security solutions such as flock safety and night scope, which are innovative, physical improvements we can do around the property. Flock safety, just as an example, is a stationary camera with very high definition, can pick up license plates even from vehicles traveling at full speed by the property. But to establish those around the parking lots, night scope is a lot more innovative. It's a bit more of a robot that you would have on site to patrol. It's been used effectively in airports and outside stadiums, just to help keep the roads clear and the sidewalks cleared. But certainly things that we're exploring, and if they make sense, we'll implement. And then this is obviously an ongoing process, and continue to monitor the need for additional safety protocols and collect input from all stakeholders. Long-term steps, other middle-term step is we're bringing in new resident services service coordinators at each property. We currently have a new service coordination provider that we've established a relationship with, Rainbow Housing. We work with them around the country. I think having them establishing ongoing meetings with the tenants, informing them of the house rules, making sure that they're not letting non-residents indoors after hours, especially, is going to go a long way. And policing guest policies and making sure everyone's aware of just general safety protocols is something that we're actively working on and engaging the larger community. Longer term, upgrading the existing security camera systems, installing more cameras, especially in the parking lot at Bon Air, to cover all of the parking lot area. Additional lighting throughout that parking lot is going to go a long way. Upgrading the controlled access at both properties, potentially putting in a double entry system at Richmond Summit, I think could be really effective there, that front entrance. We're going to relocate the management office at Bon Air to the front to increase visibility of all visitors. There's a large open space up front there where it's a perfect location for the property management to be located to when tenants are coming in and out of the building. We're investigating the potential for adding parking lot gates with secured access. That's something that often, especially given the existing conditions at these sites, requires some type of variance. But something we're here to work with all the community stakeholders on to have implemented if it makes sense. And then continue to work with the community on potential upgrades to the surrounding area. Longer term, as I alluded in our introduction, at Bon Air and Richmond Summit, we are planning meaningful and comprehensive renovations to both properties that we're really excited about, and helping raise the standard of living and just the overall aesthetic feel of the property, of both properties in their existing location, upgrading windows, facades, roofs, such unique properties, where they are. It really, excited about the opportunity to revitalize them both. Updating flooring and lighting throughout, full kitchen and bathroom modernizations, and then being able to add property-wide Wi-Fi for all tenants to be able to access. Just a couple points in terms of the benefits of renovations coupled with resident services programs. This is what we're actively working on, and we actually find from doing these renovations coupled with adding additional amenities, we are associated with a 50% lower rate of police emergency and non-emergency calls. And supportive housing is also correlated with an 18% reduction in emergency room visits. Really just trying to partner with the local community and obviously lower any potential use of public resources that these properties have been, and that's what really the long-term plan is here for us. So thank you again for letting me come present. I'd love questions at this point.
Well, thank you very much, sir. What's your name again, sir?
Nick Boehm. Sorry.
The last thing?
Boehm. Boehm.
I'm okay. I'm gonna stick with Mr. Nick if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Mr. Nick, first I want to applaud you and your organization or your company for wanting to provide home for low income and everything of that nature, because that seems to be something that our nation all of a sudden is losing an appetite for. So we appreciate that. I like the fact that you're trying to increase the security as much as humanly possible, but for some of the renovations that you're probably going to need to bring it up to code per se, how soon do you see that starting?
So, quite honestly, we were hoping it would have started already, even though, we just recently had the opportunity to take on stewardship of both. Without getting too much into the weeds, there were some just longer term items that came up when it came to the financing of the renovations, with the local tax credit programs that delayed the most recent funding round. As soon as that funding round opens, which we're in active dialogue with the Department of Community Affairs on, DCA in Georgia, these will absolutely be at the top of those application lists, and so we would expect those renovations to start here, certainly in the next 12 months.
Okay. I hate to bring this up, but I saw this in the paper, and I take full responsibility for not reading the article, not doing a follow-up. But if I'm not mistaken, just recently you went before planning and zoning. If you're the wrong entity, just say, well,
No,
that's
that's
not
right.
me.
Yep.
And I think you were denied something. What were you pursuing and why were you denied?
So we were actually pursuing a variance for the number of parking spaces at Bonaire, to simply state that the current parking would be sufficient if we were to secure funding for adding additional units in the back area of the Bonaire. But the idea was for the application to go in to DCA, we needed to have a variant, an approved variance for the parking, given it's technically legal non-conforming right now.
So have y'all given up on pursuing your variance? Are you just, so where do you go? If you don't have the variance, you
I
say you
think
can't
this
deal
was the
with
next
this?
step. So to be here, speaking with you all, and being able to, I've been speaking with Mr. Welcher for several months, prior to our acquisition about the right way to go about bringing forward our ideas, and found an opportunity here to come present to you all and just talk about the safety plans. But the idea behind that variance was just related to the fact that we were looking to do a meaningful renovation, to Bonaire, that would add additional units there in what used to be, the old amenity space where there was a theater, on the property, allow us to do significant upgrades as well to the facade, roof, windows. But the first step in that process would be confirming, that there were no issues with the parking staying.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Franklin, you in there? You in the queue? Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Bain, right?
That's it. Yes,
All right, so I got it, Commissioner Hassan. Mr. Bain, thank you for coming today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a couple questions, and please, I don't want you to assume that I am trying to be rude or anything here by asking the questions that I'm going to ask you, but I just want to get some clarity on a couple of things, because I think while your presentation gives a good idea of where we're going short-term and long-term, I think that, there's some things that we need to be just having conversation about, quite frankly. I'd hate to say it in this manner, but I almost feel as though we're still talking about Azalea Park when we're talking about Bonaire and the Richmond Summit sometimes, just because of the number of code enforcement violations that we're getting at these locations. And so I just have a couple questions. And one of those questions, it's just really around the plan for your on-site security. So I heard you speak about cameras and things of that nature, but is there any plan for like an on-site person, an on-site security officer on that site to manage folks coming in and out? And I asked that question because at the Bonaire, I got a phone call from someone saying that, you can just walk right in, and I didn't believe it. But I went over and I walked right in. I walked every floor, went into the old ballroom. No one asked any questions. No one questioned me at all. Same for the summit. And I know at the summit, you have situations where folks are letting other people into the building, and that is when the crime is happening. So is there any plan for like on-site security at these premises, at these locations? Like a security company or paying a deputy? How does that work?
So that's definitely, and I appreciate the questions, of course. I definitely have a couple follow-ups that I'd want to make sure, but just to address your question, obviously. So we've spoken with, Lieutenant Adams who covers the Bonaire, and we have we've been communicating via email with Lieutenant Silas, who is responsible for the Richmond Summit. To date, based on their feedback, they do not think on-site security would be meaningfully beneficial based on the number of calls that they've received and those sites. I did go by just, anecdotally today, and, I'm not sure when your visits were, but I was not able to get into either site without making a call to the property management office, and they did not know I would be stopping by. I made sure that it wasn't going to be a situation where they would be aware. I also once I did get into Bonaire, the ballroom was locked from me being able to access that space, as were the other rooms. All spaces we would like to bring back online, as part of that long-term plan. It's such a beautiful view up there. But I think that just from an active dialogue with the police force and what they're seeing, the report I got for last year in terms of calls, obviously want the number of calls to be 0, ideally. And all right, Commissioner McKnight has it as well. So I hope it's the same, because this is what I got from Lieutenant Adams. But he said 91 calls last year.
I've got this if we want to put it on the screen. That's correct, 91. And this was updated last, February. No, it was January the 1st of last year up until December this past year.
Mr. Chairman, do I still have the floor for follow-up
Yes, sir,
questions?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Thank you. So I don't want to say that I disagree with you about the on-site security not being beneficial, but a lot of the problems that I know that's been brought to my attention has been because of the ease of access to both properties. So I would suggest that we just look into that. Absolutely. Because there's not a shortage of calls to both of those properties. I mean, there are folks sleeping in the stairwell at the Bonaire and at the Summit, and they're only able to get in because someone let them in. I mean, that's how the drugs have been peddled. That's how folks are coming in and out that don't live there. But I think that's going to be monumental in making sure that we have a handle on these properties, having somebody on site. And you mentioned alarm systems. I'll leave that part out. So let me just ask you one additional question. Two additional questions, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. If you have policies in place to say you can't, let someone in that doesn't live there, or, you can't have folks staying over, or you can't loiter, those types of things, do you have any policies in place as a company for residents that are non-compliant in that regard? So if I'm letting my friends in, or if I'm, keeping the door ajar, letting folks into the building, or if I'm selling drugs out of the building or whatever, what policies do you have in place for residents that are non-compliant with those policies?
They will be evicted. We've had recent evictions at each property for non-compliance with the house rules that were followed through. I think the cameras, will definitely help in policing, that over time as well. It's certainly something we're focused on. Obviously we definitely don't want people sleeping in the stairwells.
Yeah, well, it's definitely happening,
Yeah.
which is why I really want us to have this conversation about security and things of that nature. And that concludes my questions. I just want to have the conversation, because at the end of the day, the people who are living at Bonaire and the Summit can't live anywhere else. They can't afford it. But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve a good quality of life. And I'll just be honest with you, Mr. Bain, when I go into these properties, I can barely stand the smell. And so the code enforcement issues, the security issues where quality of life is concerned, they're alarming to me. But I like the presentation, and I do feel like you're going to get on top of that. But I would like for some update at some point on where we are, at least with addressing code enforcement violations, because I hear the stories, but I want to see some action there.
And that is news to me on the code enforcement. I guess I'll work with Hawthorne.
We'll get you a list, because there's quite a few
Okay, great.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
No, I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to go back, Mr. McKnight, Commissioner, I'm going to go back to Commissioner Clark. I skipped him, and I apologize, Commissioner Clark. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at these incident reports, and I won't even comment on it. But one thing that I would like to comment on, we like to use cute words, cute catchphrases, and one of them is affordable housing. I don't know what that is. To me, affordable houses is what your paycheck will allow you to buy and exist in. And my colleague from District 1 asked all the right questions about security, may I add that I concur with him on that. But what is the standard rental fee per resident going to be at the Bonaire and also at the Summit?
So thank you very much for the question, Commissioner. Both properties are governed by the HUD Section 8 housing policy. So every resident, if their rent, if their income qualifies, which is under 50% of the area median income, if they make less than 50% of the area median income, which is equated by household size, then they only need to pay 30% of their income as rent per month. So that would be the HUD's definition in this case of affordable.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so each rent is on a sliding scale conducive to the 30%?
Every resident pays 30% of their income as rent.
What is the base rent per unit before each resident gets the 30%?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I quite followed. Maybe if you could rephrase the question.
What is the base rent on each unit before the resident gets the 30%?
The resident pays 30% of their income as rent.
Yes,
I give up.
Well, Commissioner, I think what he's saying is they don't actually receive.
Mr. Administrator, hold on just a minute. Go ahead, Mr. Administrator.
Yeah, so the residents don't actually receive a subsidy in that manner. They're actually only paying 30% of the rent. So if it's a 2-bedroom that's at $1,500, they would pay 30% of that. If it was $1,000, then they would pay 30% of that. I think what he was under the impression is that they would be receiving a subsidy of 30%. That's what his question was based on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the residents don't receive a subsidy. The residents simply pay to the property 30% of their income, so long as they income qualify, so long as they're making less than 50% of the area median income.
Yes, sir.
I'm done.
Commissioner Knight, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Nick, first name basis, since we've had 2 Zoom meetings and we've talked. But we talked about short-term, midterm, long-term plans. Do we have, excuse me, commissioners, do y'all have anything to say? Okay, I didn't know if, all right. No, I just wanted to know. Oh, okay.
Commissioner, y'all be respectful to my colleague.
I'm sorry about that, but I just wanted to ask you, what do you have right now in place again for security there?
So we have, obviously, during the day, property management and maintenance are there on site. Currently in place is direct dialogue with the local lieutenants in each zone. There are security cameras securing each property that have a feed into the management office with 30 days of backup stored on site, and secured entry doors at all locations. Obviously, some of those, from a medium-term standpoint, those have been ordered and just waiting on them to be replaced.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Is there a way we can flip over the sheet real quick to the back side? That we only have the front side. Can we look at the back side possibly, please? I wanted to bring up some numbers just quickly. I feel like everybody else had a turn. I represent this area, so I've got some questions. Anyway, I look at the noise and disturbance number there, 40. Look at domestic violence, 22. Suspicious wanted people, 36 people. Theft, 16. Got a parking lot back there on Cumming Road that has had drug dealings going on, okay? I have friends that live nearby, constituents, that have called me on several occasions, not once, not twice, but more than probably 3 times more, about gunshots coming up Cumming Road from that parking lot. Is there anything within the next week, 2 weeks, can you tell me possibly what we're going to do to fix this, and who's going to be there to monitor and take care of getting these numbers down?
Do you know what time? Sorry, and I really appreciate the question. Do you know what time period this?
I can get it to you and let you know tomorrow.
Okay.
What time you want the exact time for what when the?
No. Like were these in the past year?
Oh, yes. This was between January of 2021 to December 2021.
Okay.
When did you take over the Bon Air and Summit?
Last March.
Okay, so you've had it since almost a year, and so nothing since you came in March of last year. So far, no security. I was over there on the premises back in late November, and I walked in. I had to turn around and walked out, and I feel for those who live there. They don't have anywhere else to go, but it smelled so bad, and it's unfortunate. Nobody stopped me. Doors are open. It's like revolving doors. Anybody can come in. There's people coming in, and people that live there are scared, have reached out. They're scared of what's coming in there, in and out. Can you tell me what we're going to do as far as doors? Is there going to be one door, two door, to where we can keep all these other doors from being accessible?
At each property, there's one main entrance, and I appreciate that feedback from November. I know a lot of steps have been taken since then at each site. One being there, as you may have all read or experienced yourselves. Hiring is a challenge across all facets, but I'm excited to be able to, be here and letting you know we have full-time property managers and maintenance at both properties. There was a period of time, November included, where, we were sharing a resource between the two properties while filling that other position. When I was at both sites today, so that has helped from a security standpoint during the day. And when I was at both sites today, there was only one entrance I could go to. That entrance was still locked. You needed a key fob to be able to enter both buildings or dial the property manager to get inside the building at both sites. So, steps have been taken, very recently since we started having these conversations to make sure these sites would be secured.
Is it fully occupied?
Both buildings are fully occupied, 95 to 100% occupied.
Okay, and most of them are what would you say, younger people?
So there's an age or disability restriction on both properties. So the tenants are either over 62 or are handicapped.
One more question. The grounds, the interior and outside are pretty much unkept, unclean. What are you going to do as far as getting it looking better, so to speak? I mean, are you going to brush? Well, I just want to know these questions real quick while we're sitting here so that other people can hear and know what's going on as well. What are your plans, though, with cleaning up around there?
So I did walk the grounds today. And look, I'm just, right, I can only speak to the reports I'm getting. I'm definitely going to make sure we establish appropriate protocols regarding trash. That said, I did not see trash around the property today. And given it is winter, most likely, things have not been overgrown, but absolutely instituting, policies and procedures to make sure the grass is, the lawn is maintained and the exterior is maintained, is important to us and, important to providing for this community.
So before we do anything else.
Excuse me, Scott. Excuse me, Miss. Let me go to Commissioner Frampton, because we're going to be here all day with it.
All right.
Yeah, I think
all right.
Because he had a lot of the things in the presentation.
Yeah, I had a few more questions, but that's sure. We can catch up later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, my question's around, you put this presentation together. You talked about short-term, a lot of long-term fixes, but there's no timeline. When you put long-term, like in your mind, what is long-term? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Like,
I wish it was already here. You know, it's a matter of, you know, this significant funding source that we're able to access to do these types of repairs, you know, is unfortunately just waiting for that door to open again for, you know, the appropriate tax credit funding to do the renovation. The conversations I've had with DCA is that this is certainly something that will happen in the next 12 months. We have been moving forward with full architectural plans at both properties. You know, the one parking lot variance we went in for, that is for something that would be nearer term. So that application is due in April. And that would be an opportunity for us to invest significant dollars into both properties sooner than, you know, 12 months from now. But we do not foresee these renovations, when we talk to long term, being something that's, you know, more than 12 to 18 months out from that.
Okay. Well, obviously there's an accountability piece, you know, from the constituents that are around there in this community, that safe and the well-being of all the people that live there as well. So I'm glad to hear you say 12 to 18 months, because it concerns me that, like, there wasn't really a timeline as a sense, as well as the safety aspect. When you see this on the screen, it's disturbing to see, and I think that the continued dialogue needs to happen between this commission and the administrator and HCD to make sure that, you know, the accountability piece and your continued dialogue with us to update us on what's going on, because ultimately we're the ones all getting reached out to about what's going on, and so I appreciate you coming here, but I hope that this will be continued dialogue to increased improvement on both, you know, your properties. So,
thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Nick, I just want to say to you, I think is without a shadow of a doubt, we got to look at these criminal elements here and try to do something in reference to try to get that under control for security reasons, but also in terms of, and I don't know, that may be resolved in terms of my colleague saying about the odors of the cleanliness of it. A lot of those things may be some things that are out of your control as of right now, but I hope not over the long term. And I want to say in closing, I'd like for the committee to try to look at the administrator, so that have a conversation with them to see what their goals are, and also take in consideration if DCA doesn't act in a timely manner, what does that look like? And get back with us, Mr. Administrator, within a month, and give us some update on the prospects of having a good neighbor here in terms of what they're doing. They are providing a roof over the head. I don't necessarily, the quality of life may be suspect at this particular time, but if we can work with them to enhance that quality of life, then let's attempt to do that. So at this particular time, I'd like to ask this committee to accept this as information. Can I get a motion?
Motion to receive as information.
Second. Voting, Ms. Bonner.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Bobby Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
All in one. All right.
Ms. Bonner, I
now.
think we go to item number 7.
We can, sir. Item 7 is an overview of successful
You gotta go.
outcomes
Ms.
of
Bonner, let me go to item number 6, please. I'm sorry.
Item
I
number
apologize.
6 is an update from HCD relative to the Emergency Assistance Program. Commissioner Scott.
Well, I know she will. She from Gilbert Manor. I seen her in the snow the other day, they say.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Daniel Evans with Augusta Housing and Community Development. I'm being joined today by our partner, United Way, the CSRA, represented by their president and CEO, Mrs. Brittany Burnett. And we're here just to bring you a quick update on where our community is with the delivery of services under the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So just do a brief recap for you. Augusta, Georgia was one of the communities in America selected for funding initially under the CARES Act and then under the American Rescue Plan to receive allocation of funds to help our low and moderate income residents who were behind on rental payments and utility bills to come current to avoid eviction and maintain stable housing in Augusta, Georgia. I always like to point out when I speak on this program that this is open to the entire county, so it's available for both the cities of Augusta, Hepzibah, and Blythe. Again, for any residents who are considered to meet the standard of low or moderate income, which is 80% of the area median income or below.
So I know we've gone over some of this before, but just as a recap, there are various ways people can apply for assistance with the program. We wanted to make this as easy as possible and really make sure we were meeting residents where they were. So for some, you can simply text the word rent, as you see there, to 50503. You can fill out a quick application, and that puts you in a queue to make sure that we are processing applications in the order in which we receive them. And another way, you can also go to our website, uwcsra.org. It actually takes you to the same form, but if more people are comfortable going online that way, they can fill out the same form, puts them in the same line that way as well. And then also people can call 211 if they still have difficulty, and then we can help them filling out the application. And then you can see here there's some basic resident assessment that we do, and we've got to engage the landlords as well. So we determine that the resident is first of all eligible, which is 80% or less of the area median income, make sure they do live in Richmond County, a few other things. We do a unit inspection, which is unique to our community. We want to make sure that the residence is safe and stable. And if it's not, we want to make sure that those repairs are made before we are paying the landlord, because this is a program we're not paying the tenant, but we're actually paying the landlord directly, and want to make sure the home is safe. And then we also have to get documentation from the landlord, which is an updated ledger and is also a W-9, and information if they want to get electronic payment, we need to get that as well. So there's pieces from the tenant and pieces from the landlord both that are necessary to provide assistance.
So just to give you a quick breakdown, I want to say that the service continues to be rendered, and we're very proud of our progress so far. We do know that there is still a great need in our community, as we've seen through our partnership with the Magistrate Court. But in partnership with United Way, so far, with the conclusion of our funding from the first round of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, you can see that over 1,100 households have been prevented from eviction so far. That's a total of about 2,647 residents that have received services. And how that breaks down in terms of the months of assistance that were provided, you see in the breakdown there below. Just to contextualize that for you, this program is able to pay up to 15 months of arrearages for folks that are behind on rents or utility bills. Those are non-inclusive of one another, so unlike typical programming, we are able to support both rental and utility payments that are behind on a separate count towards those 15 months, so we can serve both needs each of those 15 months. Kind of alluded to this already, but just to let you know, we have successfully completed the closeout with United Way on the first round of funding that was available to Augusta, Georgia under the CARES Act. And we are proud to announce that with the Commission's approval last month here before you, we were able to move forward and begin implementation of the second round of funding, which is afforded through the U.S. Treasury once again, this time supported by the legislation in the American Rescue Plan. And just to let you know, the breakdown on that is a little different. The first allocation of funding that we've exhausted came in a lump sum payment to Augusta, Georgia for services. They've tiered the distribution, as you see described here, for the second round of funding. It is a total of the $7.1 million that you see there, but to date, we have only received the $2,845,000, and we continue to be in communication with Treasury about meeting the benchmark requirements to receive the additional balance of the $7.1 million there. Our partners at United Way continue to lean in on the effort, though. I want to commend them. They have already obligated services to residents in need to continue to work through the wait list that we have for the program. So you can see as recently as this morning, they've let us know that they've committed a little over $444,000 ready to go payments for services again under the second round of this funding. Sorry. Sorry, we didn't work our act out here, guys. I apologize. So I do want to highlight a couple of things that have evolved as we have worked through this partnership together with United Way. The most important and most impactful element of intervention that we've tried to introduce is the partnership that we have been very fortunate to have with the Magistrate Court, which is obviously the element of our judicial system that handles dispossessory and eviction hearings. So we are able to provide a staff member in the gallery of the hearings for all dispossessory reviews in Augusta, Georgia, at the municipal at the courthouse, and that staff member from HCD is able to serve as a liaison for the program, provide status updates on the tenants, whether or not they have applied for assistance, whether or not they seem to be eligible for that assistance, and that information is shared with the landlord and facilitates a continuance or a stay, depending on the situation, to allow that tenant to receive the assistance for which they are eligible and ultimately to avoid the eviction from the premises. So that has been an important intervention in staving off sort of the mass eviction crisis that we have all feared since the lifting of the eviction moratoriums last year. Additionally, we are able to support in instances where landlords do not elect to work with the program and receive payments for assistance from United Way in order to bring their clients or their residents current. We are able to support through Augusta's Emergency Solutions Grant Program the effort to move those residents into a new apartment or home, assisting with the financial costs related to application, security deposit, utility connection, and the initial payment of rent to ensure housing stability for them in a new unit, again, if the landlord was not willing to accept payment for the unit they were in. And again, just as I alluded to, we maintain communications with our colleagues at the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, as well as our funders for this program at the U.S. Department of Treasury, in an effort to solicit additional funding to support the need that we see here in Augusta, Georgia. We do feel that we will be pressing through for the remainder of this year to exhaust the existing funds on hand, but we have seen clear evidence that the need is much deeper than the full budget may reach, and so we will continue to iterate and improve upon this program to provide as much relief in the prevention of evictions as we possibly can. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I can turn it over for questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Commissioner Scott, you put this on the agenda. Was there anything like to say?
No. Thank you so much for what you're doing with this program, and the need is definite there, and hopefully we can move forward with assisting as many people as we possibly can. Thank you. I received that information, sir.
Okay. A second, Commissioner Bobby Williams.
Yes, sir. I want to ask a question because I get asked this all the time. Sometimes we have people who have already kind of been through the process. They already have the 90 days of pay, or I'm not sure if that's your program or what have you, but I have people that they're on some type of program where they get 90 days of funding for rent or what have you. And let's say they've run out of all of those options. And I know that may not be as clear as it should be, but what can I tell them that the city of Augusta can do? Do we just tell them to call you guys or what?
Well, I think I can follow you there, sir. So what you may be referencing is actually a separate program that was funded under the CARES Act as a response to the public health emergency. So we did operate a program to provide temporary housing, in a sense, through our hotel partnerships that we have in the community for persons who were either not able to access our emergency shelters in the community because of health concerns or potentially mental health conflicts. That's a little different than this. So this is a homelessness prevention program that seeks to allow residents to maintain the housing they have by paying their past due rent and utility bills. But in either instance, I do want to echo the message that our partners at CSRA EOA do operate the Marion Barnes Resource Center for the Homeless. Whenever someone is facing a housing issue, whether that be the threat of homelessness because they're behind on rent, or that be the actual instance of homelessness because they've lost housing or otherwise find themselves unhoused, accessing the Marion Barnes Center is the appropriate first step to ensure that they get the level of service, both short-term and long-term, that their needs require.
So in long term, a permanent home for somebody who is?
Yes, sir. So our programming does seek permanent housing is the outcome for our homeless services. That goes all the way, even the conversations at the emergency shelter level are geared towards placement in permanent housing. We've had some great success with the rapid rehousing program that you may have heard us talk to you about before, which is another ESG funded program from HUD. But essentially what that does is provides us, again, those financial tools to help people move back into permanent housing that have lost their housing. So ultimately, permanent housing, certainly appropriate to the individual or family and their needs, is the long-term goal. That's a little separate than the conversation about the rental assistance, because again, we want to maintain it through this program.
Well, I just need to ask a question. So is there a contact person that we need to give to these people that are asking these questions, or what? Because I'm telling you, everybody thinks that the commissioner can solve all problems.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we get a zillion questions. So who's the contact person that we would need to send them to?
So, yes, sir, absolutely. Daniel Evans with Housing Community Development, more than happy to take those calls on your behalf. I will say that from a community-facing perspective, our partners at 211, separate from the ERA program, just 211 in general, as well as the Marion Barnes Resource Center, are openly available to work with members of the community. So as an easy-to-remember number, 211 is always an avenue. Mrs. Burnett's resource specialists do have the ability to connect that caller directly to the resource center when their issue has been identified as related to homelessness.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry to speak for you.
And Commissioner Williams, I'd also like to say into the group is that with this program, what we're trying to do is we want to keep people housed, but we want to do more than that. So even though for these dollars, it's for rent and utilities, we're also asking them, do you need food supports? Are you working? Because some people will say, we see signs everywhere where there's help needed, but some people don't have the transportation to get there. They are unaware of where those opportunities are, because we want this to be kind of a short-term fix so that they're ultimately able to be self-sufficient, but that looks different for everybody. So we're asking the extra questions rather than just paying rent and utilities to make sure that they're thriving in our community and they don't end up like sounds like some constituents that you've all heard from that need continual help.
And I'm sure you guys are. It's just that when people call us, we need to do more than just say, and actually have a number to give people, somebody that they can connect with, because we get these calls all the time.
Yes, sir. And if I may, Commissioner Williams, I will say 211 is that easy to remember number. It's one of the reasons we love that partnership. Is it's sort of like 311 for Augusta, Georgia, right? People can remember a quick and easy number to call. But Director Welcher and I will be working with the Office of the Administrator to try and schedule a workshop, because there are a lot of programs out there right now. Augusta is very flush with some resource, and they do get easily entangled from a perception standpoint through our partners in the media. I know that I've had the privilege of working closely with Commissioner Johnson on the subject of homelessness, but even in those conversations, right, we can find ourselves down the rabbit hole where things overlap and do get confusing. So we will be looking for an opportunity to help provide some more clarity to that with some support from great partners like United Way and EOA as we move forward as a community. So I appreciate your question, because that's something we hear very often too, is that confusion from our neighbors that don't quite know where the help is. But the big message we want to send is that the help is there, and we want to make it as accessible as possible.
Thank you very much. We got a motion and a second, if I'm not mistaken, receive this information. Voting, Ms. Bonner.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 7, Mr. Administrator. I think you said it takes about a couple of minutes.
So I believe this one is already in your packets, and I think that as we come up on the close of the Vax Up Augusta program, what you'll see from the report is that we exceeded the expectations of the 10,000 shots and have had a positive impact on the vaccination rate in the community, while also having the ability to reallocate a large amount of those funds. And so the program is on track to close January 31st. We would need, of course, about a week or two to make sure we close out and receive all information related from our vendors, but we expect that to be resolved around February, somewhere in between February 5th and the 10th. And that will result, we'll have our final numbers and data, but even before the program closes, we've exceeded the 10,000 shots, and all of our vendors are in compliance from the requirements of the MOU.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions? Receive this information.
Second.
Okay. Voting, Ms. Bonner. You do know
Unanimous, sir.
Do they know they're on a hot mic down there?
I ain't talking like the president.
Item number 1.
You can say it under your breath, you just can't say it in the mic, okay? Overview of proposed SPLOST 8 allocation schedule and relevant active and proposed capital project coordination.
Mr. Administrator.
So, traditionally in February, the staff brings to the commission a schedule for well, it's usually in March, but we have a lot of our data already prepared for SPLOST 8. I think you've seen the Build Augusta dashboard, and so there are quite a few other projects going all the way back to, I think, SPLOST 5 and 6 that are still active. So just wanted to provide the commission just an update on where we are. We have quite a few projects that I guess I consider them legacy projects because they've gone on for so long that are coming to completion. So we wanted to highlight those. But in addition to that, there are also some projects that because of the length of time and the changing dynamics of the pandemic, where the costs have gone above what was budgeted in SPLOST 7. Well, we are projecting to have overages on SPLOST 7 that will ensure that we can bring those projects to fruition, most of those in 2022. And so what we wanted to do is just highlight those projects near completion, show you the projected SPLOST 7 overages, although we have not received those final numbers. We will, I believe, at the end of this month, and then highlight the projects that are kind of over budget where we need to reallocate funds for those, and then highlight some of the approved facility improvements that also need additional dollars. And so what we're looking at is about $15.9 million, and based on the proposal, I think there have been some questions because the commission is the one that makes the decisions, not the staff, so we wanted to highlight that these are projected numbers and these are proposed uses which the commission would have to approve. And so in addition to that, to make sure that we brought some of those projects into fruition, there are some reallocations proposed from SPLOST 5 and 6. So some current projects, and we'll break each one of these down, but some current projects that are at or near completion in 2022. And I think as I go through this, one of the things that I want to highlight is that all of these projects that we're looking at really touch the entire county. So every district and super district receives the benefit of these capital projects that are either planned, ongoing, or that without these allocations would be under budget. So the Old Waynesboro Road storm improvements and sidewalk installation is basically nearing completion. I think we're just doing the punch list on that. So likely by the end of the month, that would be completed in District 2. I think you're familiar with the Kissingbauer Road storm improvements and sidewalk installation, which is also nearing completion. Tobacco Road in District 4, also the Willow Road paving and sidewalk installation in Districts 1 and 7. So those are really accelerated projects that are already moving towards completion and should likely be done first quarter of 2022. Just breaking those projects down, almost $1.6 million, blending LMIG fund and SPLOST 6. I think that's pretty important because under the direction of Dr. Malik, I think he has done a very good job of really blending a lot of different funding sources, including state funds, to make sure that he delivers these projects, which many times are over budget when it comes to SPLOST. So he's still been able to deliver those by leveraging some of the some of the state projects, which are the LMIG funds in this instance. So as you see, this project will actually be closing out. Same thing with the Kissenbauer Road project, little under $400,000 that has been funded through LMIG funds. You've got the Tobacco Road, almost $1.6 million for sidewalk installation and traffic improvements, also state funded. We do have some upcoming 2022 projects that propose to be funded by SPLOST overages and various department capital. And so just to highlight some of those, as you remember, we talked about in the FY 2022 budget, leveraging these funds to take care of some of the roads that are in disrepair. I think this looks at 11 roads in districts 1, 3, and 5 that are in pretty bad shape, but there are also an additional 23 roads that have not, yet been addressed and could be, depending on what those final numbers look like. We heard recently from one of the committees related to the need for bus shelter improvements, and I know that Commissioner Clark and some of the others have really highlighted the need for those bus stop improvements. And so throughout all districts, I'll highlight that there's a proposal to utilize some of these funds to actually fill in the gaps for some of those needs. The Fleming Tennis Center, I think that's one, I know that that's one that we talked about publicly multiple times for the lighting improvements and things of that nature that we did not have the funds for in the original SPLOST allocation. The Jamestown Park and Field improvements, which I think were over budget by about $400,000, but again was approved. The facility improvements for the Richmond County Sheriff's Office, roof and pods, I think we talked about that also during the work session and assured the commission that we'd be able to identify the funds for that. Fire Station 3, I think, was a very hot topic that we talked about in 3 different consecutive meetings with the cost at about $7 million, which was also unbudgeted because the other fire stations were actually over budget and ate up all of those funds from SPLOST 7, and then Henry Brigham, which is projected to come in over bid by about $1.5 million. And so in looking at all of those projects, first when looking at the roads for those ones that are mentioned, be a little under $2.5 million, but would be able to take care of all of those roads within this fiscal year. In addition to that, about $500,000 for bus shelters throughout the county in every district. And the Fleming Tennis Center lighting is, again, it cost about $419,000 of unbudgeted funds, and so we would use the SPLOST 7 overages to make sure that we correct those lighting issues and safety concerns. The Jamestown Park, which again there was about $400,000 in SPLOST 7 remaining, and so we would leverage SPLOST 5 and 6 recapture of about $366 to deliver all of the proposed improvements that were originally listed. In addition to that, there are other facility improvements that again have come in over budget, and while the costs have been allocated, there was a need for about almost $2 million for those existing projects that have not moved forward yet. And so the way that those would be allocated, I think one would be Fire Station number 3, which I think we've kind of beat that horse to death, so everyone is familiar with that one. Again, paid out of SPLOST 7 projected overages. The Henry Brigham Community Center, which is another one that based on supplies and the time frame from which it passed until now, we're estimating about 1.1 million that would be needed to deliver that project. And in addition to that, there were others that we identified that were, I guess, discussed during the budget and documented, but just wanted to include those here. I think earlier today we talked about the grocer of the $250,000, so that would be earmarked out of these funds. The Augusta Mini Theater would be about $500,000 to bring that up to the, I think it was about $1.5 million, with 800,000 or so, I'm sorry, 1.2 million, with about a little under $800,000 of that being inside of the current SPLOST and their match as well. The Canal Authority, which was a directive that I think the commission approved after budget utilizing these funds, which was $250,000. Remember that the balance of the train agreement is actually using ARPA funds, but the SPLOST 7 earmark would make that whole project whole. I think that was one I remember having a fairly detailed public conversation with Commissioner Garrett, making sure that the SPLOST 8 funds went to the maintenance of all of our buildings, and this would allow us to offset that and use the full, I think, 5.5 million in SPLOST 8 for our existing buildings to be able to maintain that. And so with that, I went through that fairly quickly because that is the SPLOST 7 overages portion, which I can take some questions on, or Mr. Chair, I can proceed and just show the SPLOST 8 proposed timeline, which I think you've seen all of the numbers and all of the projects, but there's a proposed timeline of when they will start and when they would be completed. I thought this was helpful because you might ask, well, why did you not start this project in 22 and move it to 23? It's because there are funds allocated in 7, so you wouldn't have to do that.
Okay, well, you can hold off on that just for a moment because I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
And this question may be for Dr. Malik, if you don't mind. I see the work that we started on, is that Louisville Road? Waynesboro Road. I think Commissioner Garrett and I probably started together, so, and it started on the 6th, and then we brought in 8. So did the work for the District 6 side of the street, did that get done, the sidewalks?
Not all the way to the end. Yeah, the project, yeah, the work that was started and then added to, yes, sir. Both
Okay, so the part that we started with on 6 is complete?
Right, yes.
Commissioner Hassan, it doesn't go all the way to Mike Padgett as we requested.
Oh, okay.
It stops at Covington.
Okay. All right.
It's been a very long project.
Yeah, no, I didn't see 6 nowhere, so I'm trying to figure that. Okay, my next question, okay, Doc, I'm fine with that. On the road we surfing too, I had 1 or 2, but I won't worry about that. I'll talk about that later. I thought maybe also, Mr. Administrator, we talked about the boathouse. We were short of some funds there. So had you been considered how we're going to get that done?
Yes, so those funds, these are just the projections of what we know. We expect that number might come back slightly, and then we'll have some additional funds. So, and I forgot, you may not know this. The ARPA rules have come out and given us a little bit more flexibility. We're also coming in under budget. And so my thought would be that we can utilize some of those funds to allocate there.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, thank you.
And that wouldn't be the only project. There are multiple projects for which public spaces would be applicable.
Okay, we got, I think next will be Commissioner Franklin. Hold on just a minute. Myself and Commissioner, Mr. Administrator, myself and Commissioner John Clark was conversing, and we've agreed to take off the Henry Brigham Community Center project.
Okay.
Is that a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Oh
No.
my gosh!
I'm gonna do a John
All
and
right.
Catherine. Being
Don't make him fall
Mr.
out over here.
Mr. Clark, Mr. Commissioner Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll shoot you in the parking lot.
It's not funny. All right. So, Administrator, I appreciate this update, but I do have one concern and one question.
Yep.
My concern is if you go back to the last screen, we passed SPLOST 7 and 8 in record amounts and record dollars, and we agreed no nonprofits would receive any dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And how did this get on the screen? Because I know we didn't vote on it, and it's just if we got one nonprofit up there, we got to have a whole bunch more, and I'm not sure how. And it's nothing against them, but we had other nonprofits in line, and we said no nonprofits up here as a body, all of us, and.
Yeah, so actually you didn't say that in the last meeting.
No, I'm talking about when the vote happened of the SPLOST 7, we had no nonprofits on there, and we all agreed upon it as a body that was represented at that time because we had a laundry list of nonprofits. So now for us to put a nonprofit back on there for funding, I don't think that sends the right message to the community that all the other nonprofits now, but this one gets on here is my question.
So I wasn't here for that, and I don't know what the commission's decision was made then, but the decision you made in the FY 2022 budget and the directive that you gave to the administrator was, one, the Canal Authority, which is not the nonprofit that you're talking about, and the library, you directed me to find funds for them in that budget. The other thing that you asked me to do is that all of the projects from SPLOST 6 and SPLOST 7 that were coming in over budget to identify funds and bring it back to the commission. And so this mini theater piece is already, you actually did that, I believe, in SPLOST 6. And so that is the shortage. And so that's why those funds were identified. So you would just be using SPLOST 7 overages for that to close out that SPLOST 6 project.
Okay.
Now that's the directive that you gave.
That's a little bit more on the clarity side of okay. My other question would be is you talked about the Fleming Center and lighting. So we have all these parks that have not opened back up fully, but yet I didn't see that as like a priority of all the parks. Like I got Warren Road Community Center that the basketball court hadn't been open for 2 years.
It's in SPLOST 8. Remember in SPLOST 8 you allocated.
But why would we keep a community center closed? And there's not just that one, but there's tons of them from a lighting issue because we had the lighting. We closed them all off, but yet we're going to go build something new or do something new, and we can't allocate dollars to fix issues.
No. So I think we're kind of confusing conversations. So the Fleming Park lighting issues are issues that exist that have to be corrected. But in SPLOST 8, you allocated lighting citywide with the focus on certain parks, and there's a list of those included. And so maybe that's why I asked if I should put that on the screen so we can go through it, because there is lighting in SPLOST 8 for all of the remaining parks. And so this is one that was not funded, so you would allocate that out of the SPLOST 7 overages. The other parks would receive their lighting through the allocations that you put in place in SPLOST 8. It was a line item that you required in SPLOST 8 for that.
And you're basically going to tell us the priority of SPLOST 8? Because we now have SPLOST 8 dollars coming in, correct?
Correct, yeah.
But you're going to give us how you feel SPLOST should be spent? 8?
It's the next piece, but
Okay.
the commissioner asked me to stop and answer current questions on these first. But as soon as we finish, we've got the spreadsheet up there with the proposed timeline for you to approve. But I showed this one first, so when you get to SPLOST 8, you can fill in the gaps. You can say, oh, you didn't do this in year 1 because you're using SPLOST overages for that. But when you get here, that's why it would kick in. So you'll be able to see that when the spreadsheet is up on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Frandon was talking about with the nonprofits being included in SPLOST 7. I remember these conversations back when they happened, even though you weren't here. I wasn't on the commission either, but it's something that we've all respected throughout this process. So to throw a nonprofit in for $500,000, I can't support that one.
Let me kind of answer that. Answer both a little bit, Mr. Administrator. If I'm wrong, you can correct me about it. What actually he's saying here, this is an ongoing project that we think we might have done in SPLOST 6, and they are short of money, and so as a result of that, to complete their project, that's what the funds is to complete that project. With the Fleming Tennis Center, I think all of us know how successful that project is out there. But as a result of the lighting system out there, they had disconnected the lighting system out there for fear of the same thing that happened over on the other ball field when we lost that young man. So as a result of that, they're bringing it up to par.
Does the Fleming Tennis Center money have anything to do with Mock Academy?
Say? Yes. Say yes.
Okay.
Some of the same things, some of the same issues, the lighting issues. It's okay, Mr. Administrator. Mr. Administrator.
Oh, I'm asking about something totally different.
All right.
Yep.
I mean, that does make sense, Commissioner Hassan, about it finishing SPLOST 6, but I just don't want there to be loopholes that others try to take, especially, SPLOST 8's about to start. We're about to start collecting on that, and I just want us to be mindful of that.
And I absolutely agree. I think that started with ourselves coming on board because we have a SPLOST that failed. When we got here, we was a $35 million deficit, which was on this building in particular, and we had to find a way for those SPLOSTs to move forward and be successful. Created a lot of heartburn about it, was the right thing to do. But this was a project in terms of mini theater that is outstanding in terms of needs to be completed because we have so much money already invested in it. And so that's where we're coming from.
Thanks, sir.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I could just say for the record, I don't have a problem with supporting nonprofits. I just want that to be known. Because when we talk about having major issues in the communities, we're talking about crime, we're talking about childhood poverty, we're talking about homelessness, we're talking about folks not having access to food. The government can't solve those problems, but the Augusta Mini Theater can help kids escape a life of crime by putting them in a theater. The Golden Harvest Food Bank can help folks not starve by putting food in their hands. We have a responsibility to help these folks. And so what I've been saying since I was elected last year was that we need to create some type of criteria that folks come up under to receive funding, specifically nonprofits. I'm not opposed to supporting nonprofits, especially the Augusta Mini Theater, because I've had students come through the Augusta Mini Theater and they're very successful to this day. But we need to have a conversation about a criteria that nonprofits will have to apply or they fall up under so that we can avoid having these conversations again. I know the genesis of it, but we need to make sure that we have something in place. But certainly, if we're going to do anything substantial in the community, we've got to lean on our nonprofit sectors. We just have to. There's no way that we can grow a substantial communities, prosperous tax-paying citizens in the future without relying on some of these nonprofits.
And I agree with you. I agree with you, Commissioner Johnson. I think at the time we done with that was necessary, and I know you're not disputing that. But I think in moving forward, you will get an opportunity to bring them back to the table in a wholesome way because of the way I think the administrator and his team is utilizing fund and recapturing money. And so those kind of things that give you a better opportunity to do those things moving forward. But I wholeheartedly agree with you. But that's how we got there, and that's where we are now. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. Do y'all want to, I'm going to ask my colleagues, do y'all want to look at those timelines now, but we just on the second committee, or you let the administrator bring them back? I'm gonna lean on all my colleagues to try to say what y'all think is best for sake of time. Y'all want me to make the decision? Bring them back. We'll bring them back. Mr. Administrator, is there anything else you want to say about what you got here project?
No, I think I do want to give a brief reminder because we've had about 10 conversations and they're about different things. And so I just want to remind the commission in the order and the direction that you have given. You first said to bring back a balanced budget that fills all of our holes and leverages the American Rescue Plan to give innovation. You said after that to bring back the SPLOST items and make sure we complete items that are projects that have been long-standing and have just never come to fruition, and fast forward those. and then bring forward your SPLOST 8 recommendations. And after that, we would move to nonprofits and others with the balance of the American Rescue Plan money. So we're on track and moving in that direction, but that's kind of the order that we publicly discussed and what we would bring back and how we would coordinate. So we took care of the FY22 budget. This SPLOST 7 proposal fills in those gaps and makes sure projects that, so I don't even know how long ago SPLOST 5 and 6 was, but it's a long time ago. And so this will help us bring forward and complete many of those projects as well as SPLOST 7. Next is SPLOST 8, and then you address your nonprofits through the American Rescue Plan. If the commission wants to go in a different direction, staff is definitely game to do so, but we're carrying out the plan that we discussed publicly.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. We're going to go ahead and receive this information and let him bring back that additional information at the next committee cycle. Can I get a motion to receive this information?
Second.
Final voting. I see.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, ma'am. That's the end of the administrative service, Madam
About
Clerk.
time.
All right, Ms. Bonner, are we ready to move to engineering?
Yes, sir, we are.
Are there any additions or deletions?
No, sir.
That is a wonderful answer.
Sir.
But as we get started, if there are no objections, I would like to consent item 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9.
So moved.
Voting, Ms. Bonner?
Mr. Johnson and Mr. Hassan.
Yes, ma'am.
Consent agenda. Yes, sir.
The Honorable Hassan.
That's 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can we?
Yes, sir.
Voting. See if this thing works.
You want to add them, sir?
We got to do 8 first.
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Hassan.
I was talking. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
He was distracting me.
It's unanimous.
All right. Ms. Bonner, we are going to take item 2, then 8, then 7.
2, 8, and 7. Yes, sir.
All right.
Item 2 is a presentation by Mr. John Milton regarding flooding problems in the area of Olive Road and surrounding area.
Good afternoon. If you will state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is John Milton. The address is 1927 Olive Road, the Jay's Place Barbershop.
Thank you. And ma'am, if you're going to speak,
My name is Frances Perrin, 1947 Olive Road.
Thank you both. All right, Mr. Milton.
How you doing? First of all, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
I'm here to address the flooding issues in the Olive Road area. Again, it's near my barbershop, which is Jay's Place Barbershop. I've been at that location probably 15, 20 years, and over the years, it's been a constant flooding issue for the traffic in that area, the customers coming to the shop. So now it's getting to be unbearable to the point where the water just overflows and goes into the business parking lot, just the whole street area, the whole surrounding areas. So I'm just here to address that issue. And also, Miss Frances Perryman here. She's a business owner down the road from my business, and I just want to bring her to let her discuss it also.
Good afternoon. What I would like to say is I've been a business owner for Richmond County for 30 years at this location, and I am right directly in the curve where the flooding exists. I have seen the flooding increase When I first moved there, it was just on one side of the road, but because of the increase of rain and flooding, it has went to the other side of the street. And as you can see from the picture, the motorists have to go down the middle lane, which is a life and death matter. Richmond County has, Olive Road has become an emergency road for, we hear every day ambulance going back and forth, and also the fire department use Olive Road for travel. It's just going to be a life and death matter for something to happen. My clients constantly complain about not being able to get into the salon. If you look at the first picture, you can see the driveway on the right. That's my driveway. They having problems getting into my driveway and getting out during the flooding. I have complained to 611 about this problem for years. I have always tried to be patient with this situation. I have talked to one of the commissioners about it, and they informed me that they would do something about it when they have the High Park project started. I don't know when that's going to be. But I do know with the motorists having to go down the center lane, something really bad is going to happen.
Thank you, ma'am. If I could get Director from Engineering up. I know that there's been some conversation with Mr. Milton. Is that correct? Has Dr. Malik reached out to you?
Well, I just had someone come by my shop yesterday and talk to me, Mr. Charlie Gay.
Okay.
Gay, yes, he came by yesterday. That was the first time in many years.
Understood. Dr. Malik, I know that this has been an ongoing issue. Just with the history of this, do we have a plan moving forward that would help alleviate some of this?
Yes, sir, to some extent. You know, this whole area is kind of flat area. There's not a whole lot great to drain on that. That's, you know, they mentioned we do have Wilson Garden project, which gonna drain to the Hyde Park. So that is 90% complete, but still we're working through it to make it work. So that will improve somewhat, but it's given the grades and all that, during heavy rains, it will still hold water, and it will take a few hours to drain it out. So it's going to be cost prohibitive to keep it dry all the time.
Yeah, I know you and I discussed that you saw the ditches along that stretch, and you're going to work to get those cleaned out and to make sure they flow better. When will that work be started?
Well, the ditches, you know, that's what Charlie was looking at that, so we can get that cleaned, you know, maybe in a couple of days right now. Really, the goal is I'm trying to push the Wilson Garden project, and we may have some funding issues with that, but we'll try our best to at least get the upper part done, you know, because everything drains through the to the residential area, Calorie Drive. That's what it goes there, and then it goes around the school, Wilson Garden School. It has to go along go under the Peach Orchard Garden Highway, that intersection where the Harvest Stable is. It goes that way and goes through around Thermal Ceramic, and then goes into the Rock Creek. Yeah, this is a long way for water to go that way, and it's real flat.
That helps explain it, because I know when he mentioned when she mentioned the Hyde Park project, I was like, that's a long ways away. But I understand now that you've got to move that water a long ways. Okay. So in regards to getting the ditches cleaned and all that, Mr. Milton, this is Dr. Malik. I would suggest that you two talk just to make sure that you connect, but make sure you stay in touch as this project progresses.
Well, let me say something that's on my mind. Like Ms. Perry just said, she's been in her business about 30 years, and I've been there about 15, 20 years. So I'm trying to see what's the time frame, because it took all of this time for me to come down here just to get a phone call, somebody come visit me. So every time we got a major storm come, the water just overflows. So is it because I'm here now that somebody want to come out and clean up the ditches? Because it's been a problem for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do a routine maintenance, yes, sir. We will clean up the ditches and we will provide our contact information, each time you see any concern or issue, you can directly, either contact me or Charlie Gay, he's our assistant director over the maintenance.
Dr. Malik, will you make sure that they have your contact number?
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions on the floor. We're going to go Commissioner Hassan.
Yes, sir. I just want to make sure I clearly understand Dr. Malik. I hear what he's saying for immediate purposes. You say as of next week, you will go out and clean out, put the ditches and I guess in the drains and things of that nature that's on the front side, because I'm sure along here you got some, I don't know what you call them manholes or sewers or what have you. Those things can be cleaned out almost immediately, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's primarily a ditch. It's kind of curved around.
Right.
Olive Road goes into Calvary Drive.
Okay.
Right, and then it's around the school. It goes into the pipe. Yes, sir.
So we do all that immediately and start as early as next week on some of those?
Yes, sir. That's the plan, but we're already working on it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Dr. Malik. I didn't understand, but where's the nearest drain, storm drain, to this corner right here?
It's going to overland flow around this area. And
Pardon me?
It's going to go over the surface around this area, then it's going to come around that corner, goes into the ditch. So that is a part of the storm system, what we call the open ditch system.
Okay. My second question is, what is the storm water fee being used for if it's not being used to take care of these problems and these situations? Wouldn't this be a prime example of what we need to use that fee for?
Yes, sir. The fees been used, very cost effectively. We have several programs funded through the fees, the right-of-way upkeep, the ponds upkeep, all. So we have to remember, we got 308 square mile area to serve. And ditches and pipes, we got like, 7 or 8 miles of ditches. We got, 42,000 structures, all of it. So in the relative term, there's not enough money to provide the service, as it kind of expected. But we're doing a lot better before the fee if we want to compare really, and each year we're improving. I know we are a little bit behind. We're working on coming back to the commission to give another update because of the COVID. We are a little bit behind. So
I would like to see that update like within the next month.
Are you going to add that item to the agenda?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
I guess you'll get with Ms. Bonner on that?
I will.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner?
No, I'm pretty well done.
Commissioner Mason?
Thank you. And Mr. Not Administrator. Got you on my mind for some reason, Mr. Administrator. I think you owe me something. Mr. Director, although I'm sure we're doing better than maybe we've done in the past, but we're talking about 15 some odd years of, if not more, of the same problem. So my question to you is this, because what I'm hearing is some temporary fixes, but this is a permanent problem. It almost sounds like there's a Band-Aid being put on when you need a surgical doctor to come out and address the issue. So exactly what is the issue and how can we address it in this particular case? And I know we've got all these square miles that we've got to deal with in Augusta, but it would seem like we would have been able to do it by now. We need some underground drainage. What is the actual issue here that causes, in this particular case, this to happen?
The actual issue is there's not enough grade to have a positive drainage, so water hold. The solution is to have a larger pipe to hold the water during rain and then let it drain over time. The challenge is the funding. So this whole project which we're working on right now is almost $20 million right now, but just to give general idea, the East Augusta, we got 8 phases. And that's the similar situation. Actually, this is worse than East Augusta. East Augusta still have some drainage, and so addressing the one neighborhood or one this sub drainage area, we're looking somewhere $20–30 million just for that one area. So, and we got several of those like that areas. So it's going to take time to address it. So we're already working on certain areas, like nationally as far as Tail Goshen. So we're adding as we go. So that's where the stormwater feed, is working towards positive improvement, but it's not going to be overnight.
Well, clearly it's haven't been over 15 years worth of nights, if not more. So I'm with you. I'm with you there. But here's the thing. In all seriousness, at this juncture, and with these issues, has this road and the portions of this road been identified in our infrastructure projects? Because if it haven't been identified, it's going to be a whole lot more nights and years before it could ever be adequately addressed. You know how we've identified certain roads on our infrastructure projects and so forth for either resurfacing, sewage and drainage, what have you. Has this one been identified in any of our previous SPLOST packages or that you know of?
Yes, sir. So this road was recently paved, I would say probably around 3 years. Yeah, as far as the drainage, so this is an outskirt of the project we're just discussing. So this area will be part of that project, and we can look a little bit more into that, why we can help this at this corner, But as far as the drainage of this road, it's not part of like adding a new storm sewer or along this road. It's not. Other challenge is shallow groundwater. It's not that far from where we always hear the truck hit the bridge, on the railroad bridge. The same issue. We can't go deeper because we're gonna hit the groundwater.
It was always my understanding that engineers love challenges.
Yes, sir, we do.
Good. So having said that, let's take this challenge on and try to fix it as best that we can. I know you're talking about doing some immediate drainage with the sewers that are there and so forth. It's just I'm looking at this and I'm looking at hazards, and you probably say, well, they're all over the place. Well, yeah, that's fine. That's an answer, but it's not a solution. And
well, Commissioner, I think the Hyde Park drainage will help a lot, at least pull this water away. And he said that's 90% complete. So
is it?
Yeah, I mean, the design is complete.
Design.
Oh, yeah, not.
I didn't hear the design part.
Yeah, I'm ready to get to construction. I'm ready to get to construction.
My plan is to get it started. It was actually the last quarter of last year. The challenge still we have is the same. The grade issues to make it work. So the goal is to get started this year. Whatever money we have, really the challenge is the funding. It's not to get work done or not to get designed. There's not enough funding to accelerate all these projects. We can design it, but they're going to sit there.
Wasn't Hyde Park a SPLOST 7 project?
It's been, yes, sir, 6, 7.
And we still don't have enough
8.
funding to do it, Mr. Brooks? I mean, we're talking about reallocating money to other projects, but here I'm hearing that we don't have enough to finish this project, which is a pretty substantial drainage problem that affects a pretty big portion of the central part of our county. So,
yeah, it was just money.
Yeah, so he's right. The funding is there in 7, but it may not be enough funding for it. I think the director is correct. There is funding in 7, but there may not be enough funding. So I believe his plan is to marry 7 and 8 for many of those projects.
So those added projects to the end, I don't know. Okay. I think we're going to need an update just to kind of figure out where this project stands, how much funding is needed. That way all of us can get a better grasp of this instead of just coming back with we don't have enough money. So if I think we just need to get an update on this in 2 weeks at the next committee cycle.
Okay.
You would, may I make a comment, please? Because we're adding
will
so
anyway.
many things. We're adding so many things to what we're bringing back. So the director has funds from SPLOST 7 and SPLOST 8. This is a SPLOST 7 project, right, Director?
He said 6 and 7.
6 and 7. I'll use it just like he did with East Augusta recently. He had the East Augusta drainage project, did not have enough funding for it. So what he did under the commission's approval was reallocate funds from, I believe, 5 and 6 to complete it. And then he has additional funds in 7 and 8. So it's almost like you don't have a cash problem, you have a cash flow problem. So he took the cash flow from 5 and 6 so that he can get started on those East Augusta projects, and then he'll be able to finish them out on 7 and 8. From what he just described to me, it's similar here. You've got some funding in SPLOST 7, but once the funds and allocation from SPLOST 8 becomes available, that's when you complete it. So he's done the design for multiple projects, but your collections are on a monthly basis. When they come in, he simply then can go to construction.
Wasn't there some language in the American Rescue Plan that allowed some funding to be used for drainage issues and stormwater?
Absolutely. For water, here what we've done so far is allocated funds to the meter reading. We did not go the route of allocating funds to that, but the commission still has $11 million that you've not allocated.
And that's why I was saying, let's bring this back to see what the shortfall is. And with those American Rescue Plan dollars, if there's money there that we could allocate part of it towards this project to make
for
sure.
For this single project?
We've been talking about not this single project, the Dias part, the Dias Park project that we're hearing is there's a shortfall, and it's contributing to this ongoing issue because it's supposed to be pulling water from this area. Let's look at look at it a whole. Let's see what we need. And
well, I'm asking that because most of these projects, when we're talking about them, they're upwards of about $20 to $30 million, and we're only talking about $11 million in the rescue plan. So I didn't know if what you were asking us to bring back was, again, to focus on one project or multiple. And so that's just asking for the guidance to make sure when we do come back in 2 weeks, we get the right, we're bringing back the right thing. So if it's the Dias project, we'll work with the director and we'll bring it back for that specific project.
Hyde Park, I'm sorry.
Oh, Hyde Park. Okay, for the Hyde
Sorry,
Park
I'm over here
project.
reading Dias Park on this other SPLOST 8.
That'd be a different conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no further action, I want to make sure that you all do connect and have contact. But we're going to discuss this even farther to see how we can make sure that this project gets past this design phase.
Commissioner Garrett.
Ma'am.
Madam petitioner here has
Yes,
one
ma'am.
question she'd like to ask.
Okay.
I would just like to make a statement that road and bridges normally come out because the drain is right there on my parking lot, and one is directly across the street at 1950. They periodically would come out and take the dirt and debris that is washed down in the drain, and that would take a lot of that water and make it drain better.
Right.
So if they can do that until they can get to repairing that or fixing it, a permanent fix, it would be helpful.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all for coming and bringing this to our attention. Take a motion to receive this as information.
Second. They still need to be connected, though. Maybe he
Is that without objection, sir?
Without objection.
Okay, thank you. We're headed to item 8 now, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And this is an action item, and I believe we're going to get an update from our traffic engineer. That way
Item
we
8
can,
is to receive an update regarding speed hump funding and approve revised speed hump policy.
Is this the same as traffic calming devices?
yes. Come over here so I can see you. It's weird. It's weird looking at you through all those glass, all those panes. I think this is an item that we've been discussing for the past few months, and I think that we finally have a final policy that we can implement. Are there any updates that you want to tell us about?
Yes, sir. So this was discussed later part of last year, and then was there for let's see how the 2022 budget going to work out. So now we have everything in place. So we're bringing back to the commission. There's a one-page policy attached to that, and I will bring attention to the middle part. Is called Phase 3. In the third bullet, engineering department is actually proposing change there, where we used to get like 75% of the resident signature. We're proposing reducing that to like simple majority, 51% of that. And actually, some neighboring counties did the same thing recently too. The second part is the funding. We discussed previously that there will be funding allocated in the traffic engineering, traffic calming budget, and some SPLOST fund in the traffic calming. We're still proposing dollar amount as previously proposed, $140,000 annually, but we added another sentence that if additional funding become available, that can be added to the program. The rest is the same. It's going to be 14,000 or 4 speed bumps per commission districts, all that, and they will not be carried over to the next year. We're going to start out. So that's the kind of nutshell.
Okay. Commissioner Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Meade, I think in the policy also you got the street has to be, I think, 40 feet wide or something. Is that a state issue? Because some of the roads are not state roads.
So you're referring to like some of the pre-qualification items in phase one?
Yes.
I would recommend we leave those the same. The reason being is FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, gives all municipalities guidance on traffic calming devices, and also the state of Georgia, GDOT, also has policies and guidance. All of those items in phase one, the 40 feet wide roadway, the volume requirement, the speed requirement, those all currently meet both FHWA and GDOT guidance. So usually when you have a roadway that's over 40 feet wide, it's not classified as a residential street under both state and federal law. So that's the reason for a lot of those pre-qualification requirements that we have in the policy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my concern about it is, and I'm not sure, I'm speculating here, so to be frank with you, is that, you know, I complained about also about speeding in my district, and I don't think the street is quite, even though 2 cars can go down, it might not be quite 40 feet wide. So I'm concerned about them because they have been requesting the speed bumps or the common devices or what have you. So what do you do about those? Because a lot of those neighborhoods don't necessarily have those wide streets like that.
So if the street is under 40 feet wide, then we would move to the next phase, and that is a speed survey, which would tell me the volume and the speed of the vehicles that cross over the tubes that lay in the road. With that data, we calculate a number, and if that number is meets our current policy, then we move forward with the petition. If that speed number is under a certain number, then we have to think of something else other than speed humps.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. I just want to know because I don't want those streets to be excluded. And I know I got a couple in my neighborhood, and they may not meet the width requirement, but at least they have some options there.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Pro Tem has a 10-second question.
Yes, I do. Bellmead Drive has already been approved and everything. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got a new policy that we're going to be voting in, I would imagine, next week. So are we under the old policy where we need to pay, or do we come in under the new policy where you guys fund it?
Starting this year.
Well, it's starting this year. So I think your question is, do they have to pay the $35 that was approved last year? I never submitted the item to the full commission to set up the fee district. So I think to answer your question, the people on Belmead will not have to pay.
Okay.
Unless you want them
if this
to.
is approved.
No, I'm just.
I mean, we can send you a bill.
No, that was just, you know what?
So normally when
Thank you,
we
sir.
have to set up a fee district that requires.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
Whatever.
Second.
Thank you, sir.
So move.
Well,
I
all
said
right.
se-
Voting, Ms. Bonner.
Approving item number 8, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you're doing?
And 7.
That was Ms. Scott, no, Ms. McKnight, Ms. McKnight. And
Thank
who seconded that? I didn't.
Commissioner
Mr.
Johnson.
Johnson, okay. Okay. Do who?
You get
Knight,
14,000
yeah.
per district.
Oh. Can we get you to vote now?
Welcome back.
Voting. You need that voice, right? Voting. All right. It's unanimous. Now we're at number 7, sir.
Number 7, and this only had to come after 8 because we were trying to make sure the policy was in place before we approved this.
Okay.
Can I entertain a motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Okay, that's Mr. Son and Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Voting.
Wrong voice.
It's unanimous.
And if there's no further action, I will call engineering to a close.
Good meeting, sir. All right,
Madam
Mr.
Clerk, is
Yes,
there
sir.
any additions to?
No,
finance?
sir. No, sir.
No, sir?
No,
If
sir.
my colleagues would agree, I'd like to consent item number 2. There's no objections?
Motion approved.
Second. Moved in second, please vote.
Ms. McKnight? She's out? Okay. Ms. Scott is here. She's voted. And Mr. Williams and Mr. Mason, let's go. Are you gonna vote?
Slow.
No. She did, okay. It's unanimous.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll go with item number 1, please.
Item number 1 is to discuss the commission's 2022 travel budget.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to address the subject?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ms. Bonner,
Yes, sir.
about how much money did each commissioner have last year?
$4,500.
$4,500. And I went to Savannah last year, and then I went to one national conference. And then I had another conference that I wanted to go to, but it was canceled. But my understanding was that I didn't have enough money to go to that national conference. So my suggestion today surrounds a commissioner's ability to go to the conferences that I deem that we need to go to make sure that we are up on whatever's going on around the world and locally. I think that many times we have classes that we want to take. I think that you got to go and learn in order to bring back and to be able to apply what you've learned and to partake with the rest of the commission. I don't think that you can sit here in Augusta, Georgia and learn the ins and outs and different things that you need to learn just sitting here. So I want to, and this is just a suggestion, let's say if I wanted to go to two of the big conferences and one in Savannah, I'll probably need, what, about $7,000, Ms. Bonner?
Thereabouts, yes, sir.
About
With
7,000.
travel, because you're, and if I'm following you, you would like to attend both national conferences as well as the two state local conferences, and it would be around that amount.
Around $7,000? Okay. So,
7.5.
okay, so I want to make a suggestion. I want to say at least 7. You guys are saying
10.
they're saying 7,500. So I guess I'll throw that out for discussion with your committee that I'd like to see each commissioner go to about $7,500.
Okay, are there any questions? That's Commissioner, give me a minute to check this thing. Commissioner from District 4 and then District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The suggestion is certainly a good one, and the experience that I've had and the knowledge that I've gained in my previous stint up here has certainly helped me to identify potential issues and some solutions as well. So I'm for that. My question would be, though, where would those dollars come from? Contingency, and we have that covered. Okay, well. Fantastic. All righty then, sign me up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
You already.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Williams, do you mind also that Ms. Bonner probably trying to check those numbers to make sure that 75 will get you where you need to go, where you need to get to? Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, you're right at 40, well, right now you're at 4,500, and that would pretty much cover one national conference and 2 of the state conferences. And that's what the commission approved some years ago, that funding would cover those 3 events. However, to add an additional national conference, which would be additional cost because of the air travel and the other associated amenities that you incur while,
Okay, so if I may.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Hassan, can't hear you. So, Mr. Hassan, so do you want us to go forward without a recommendation as far as a number is concerned and then approve whatever number Ms. Bonner comes back at the commission meeting next week?
I don't know, some of my colleagues are nervous. You got a number on the table. Everybody said, let's go for it. So I ain't going to bother the number. I just add something else to it. I'll leave that alone. Also, do you mind factoring? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, hopefully this would cover without having worked up any numbers regarding the upcoming conferences.
I mean,
yeah.
Do you want to bring a number next Tuesday or what?
Well, why don't you go ahead and approve this subject to any revisions I may have at your next meeting, and that way you're already committed to something.
Okay, all right, we're good.
Okay.
I hadn't finished. I heard the second part of that, if you don't mind.
He's got more?
I wanted the part also about the per diem, the mileage. I think we get compensated a lot of time from a state as opposed to the federal mileage. And so also consider that too. What is the federal mileage for travel and things of that nature as well, Ms. Bonner?
I don't know if, well, you all, since you approve your auto allowance, that would no longer allow you to be eligible for mileage reimbursement. From what I understand, you either get one or the other.
Okay. All right.
I think it's different if you're traveling. If you're that's local. I believe if you're traveling on city business outside of our service area, it's definitely covered. And I would say that Augusta, that's one of the things we'll be bringing back a updated travel policy, partially for that reason. I don't know if you know this, but you haven't updated since 2008, and you actually lag behind the state and just about every other local reimbursement policy. So it does need to be adjusted, but I believe on the numbers that you just highlighted, you would still be within budget. But we definitely need to address that because, again, you haven't looked at it since 2008.
Okay, so you want to go to the General Service Administration's mileage, the federal mileage, and I think that's right at 59% right now, opposed to the 42.3% you get.
Ms. Donna has something she'd like to say on all of this.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I apologize.
To go to the federal reimbursement rate.
A penny less, penny less.
I didn't want to butt too far in, but I don't think you want to hop in and start adjusting that just yet. I think the way it's set up now, you're good to go, and we'll be bringing back, again, that travel policy, because if you just willy-nilly make the adjustment, it's not just affecting 11 people, it's affecting 3,000. So we want to bring that policy back, and I think the way you have travel set up now with the new policy that would be coming forward and proposed, I think you'll be good to go.
All right.
And within budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So this motion will be excluding the mileage reimbursement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it will be, the motion will be to raise the allocation per commissioner to $7,500 pending any additional dollars next week.
Oh.
Okay, I got you, Mr. Mason.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes. So
We
moved.
just need a second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Been
Ms.
moved and
Scott.
second. Go ahead and cast your vote.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. We'll go to item number 3.
Item 3 is the S&P Global Ratings raise its long-term rating and underlying rating to BBB from a BBB minus on the City of Augusta, Georgia's airport general revenue bonds issued for Augusta Regional Airport.
Yes, and so this is just a quick update because we've been talking quite a bit about our finances and our position and the confidence in the government, and we received in 2021 this improved rating associated with the Augusta Airport. And so I think as government and our government finances is a team sport for which Ms. Donna Williams has really been leading for the last 40 years. I just wanted to highlight the great work associated with her fiscal management as well as her partnership with the airport, and also this global rating agency's confidence in Augusta's finances. And so I think that's very important as we move forward into the bond market. It is vital that the confidence in our fiscal position remain intact, and I think this is a pretty strong comment on Augusta's financial position, especially as we go to the bond market, you know, and our airport continues to go to the bond market.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Director Williams, for doing a good job.
Kudos.
Thank you, Chairman
Gotta skip me
Williams.
there for a minute. Did anyone else have anything to say? No, sir. Well, being that that's the last item on the finance agenda, everybody have a good day and see you.
So we will receive this for the record with no objection, okay?
Oh, I'm
Receive his
sorry.
information.
Public safety left.
Okay. And with kudos to Miss Donna Williams
Yes,
to be
ma'am.
added.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
That's it, sir.
That
For
concludes finance.
Yes, sir. Was a good meeting.
Are we ready for public safety?
Yes, sir, we are.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bonner, is there any additions or deletions to today's agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you. With consent from the rest of the members, I would like to move item 4 to the full commission for vote.
Full commission, no recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then I would like to consent items 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Okay. Mr. Bobby Williams. I
Do we
didn't
have
hear
a second?
Who seconded?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Dennis Williams, okay.
Voting?
Mr. Dennis Williams, Bobby Garrett. Ms. Garrett. Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Next item, 6, please.
Item 6 is the Augusta Fire Department is providing a public update on the progress of the review of the department's policies, implementation, and next steps. Number 6.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Well, good afternoon.
It's good to have you here. If you'd like to proceed,
Well, good afternoon,
you have the
sir.
floor.
And good afternoon.
And please
Mayor
speak into
and
the mic.
commissioners. Yes. And Happy New Year. It's really good to be here to bring you this update. And as you know, the department has embarked on a first of its kind comprehensive review of our policies and procedures. I wanted to take this time to bring you a final review and also a recommendation from those efforts. And so as a reminder, the challenges fund in this project would best be evaluated and remedied with the future commitment to participating in the Center for Public Safety Excellence Program and performing a comprehensive assessment of all aspects of Augusta Fire Department. And that comes from the 2020 McGrath report. And so we established, as a part of this review, a interagency fire management working group. The process would begin with my own review of our policies and procedures, and in creating that working group, we solicited input from other agencies. 7 fire departments were recommended. Each member held the rank of deputy chief, assistant chief, or fire chief. And so the group was established to do a cursory review of our policies and procedures with 3 pillars in mind in terms of our efforts, and that's safety, sustainability, and compliance with state law. And so first impressions. Our policies and procedures are too restrictive. The way this current policy and procedures manual is written, it limits the options for men and women in charge and restricts the latitude to adjust to ever-changing circumstances. Too much going on. So our policies and procedures, simply put, they're divided into several different areas. We have a complete list of SOPs. We have another list of SOGs. We have another list of administrative policies. And all of this is clouded by a whole list of directives. Simply put, the number of topics covered in AFD policy and procedure manual creates confusion and lacks clarity and hinders the overall operational effectiveness of firefighters and their commanding officers. Overlapping. In certain areas, one policy may contradict another, or there may be a policy that contradicts itself or if it's read in a certain way. In either case, all of this leads to confusion. Opposing statements, unclear policy, overlapping policies, all of this creates confusion for our firefighters, both in the station and out on emergency scenes. And so when it comes to process, it's very important for me to not only be transparent in the way that we operate, but it's also important for me to be inclusive. It's important for me for our members, because we're a team. And in that team aspect, there are no big I's or little U's. And so it's important for me to gain the input from our firefighters. And so we did that. We want them to be included in this process. And so we created a survey so that our members can provide input. And so when we asked our members, do you fully understand the current policies and procedures, only 61% of the firefighters are mostly or moderately confident in understanding our policies and procedures. When asked, do the current policies and procedures give you proper guidance during emergency incidents? Again, most of our members are only moderately confident in our policies and procedures. When asked, do you feel the current policies and procedures manual hinder routine station operations? 85% of our firefighters think the policy and procedures actively inhibits their job. That confusion directly affects performance. When asked, do you feel the current policy and procedures manual properly protects you within your role? Again, most of our firefighters believe that it does, only some of the time. When asked, why do you believe a review of our policies and procedures manuals need to be completed? Most important aspect of that is to eliminate confusing policies. When asked, do you feel the current policies and procedures manual needs reviewing and updating? 99% of our firefighters want this policy and procedure process to take place. So, conclusion from the survey. We had more than 2/3 of our members that completed this survey. 34% of our firefighters are only modestly confident in understanding the current PPM process. 55% of our firefighters feel the current PPM provides them direction only some of the time. 74% of our respondents hold commanding officer roles. 82% of our firefighters want the PPM reviewed every year to every 3 years. And so, recommendations. When I assumed the role, this role here in Augusta Fire, I talked about making data-driven decisions. I talked about leveraging technology and resources that enable us to be clear, focused, and firm. Taking those measures that set this organization up for world-class service and success. And so with that, I would like to introduce Chris Johansson from Lexipol.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, committee, for the opportunity to present to y'all today. And I would like to start off by commending Chief by allowing Lexipol to come in and provide an opportunity to really walk alongside the organization and bring those policies up to date, not only by getting them legally defensible and constantly updated, but also giving those very clear directives for all the members on what exactly that expectation is to be successful within the organization. And then we'll also provide for that for years to come. So it creates that legacy for the Augusta Fire Department, because there is that continuing updating process that we do. A few things about the company. So the company was actually started in 1997 by two gentlemen by the name of Gordon Graham and Bruce Prayett. They were police officers out in California. They became attorneys. They saw the need to create the first policy manual that was consistent across operational boundaries. So they did that. It took them about 5 years to create the first manual, to identify all the risks that were involved, try to mitigate those. And then now fast forward to 2022, We have policy manuals not only in law enforcement, fire, probation, corrections, juvenile detention, local government as well. And then we're also in 39 states with serving over 9,000 customers or 9,000 agencies as a company. So what Lexipol is able to provide, we have a team of public safety attorneys that works for us, and they're very, very specific to public safety. They're only employed by Lexipol, so they are very, very succinct to the challenges that we face in the public safety world. We're providing a little over 180 state-specific policies, so what our attorneys do is they review laws and standards, court decisions, and best practices, and see how that applies to the way the fire service does business in the state of Georgia. And we generate policies for you to implement within your organization and push forward. Now, with our policies, our attorneys reviewed over 15,000 pieces of legislature last year alone to keep our customers on top of the most current laws and standards as it applied to the way the fire service does business. With the policies that we offer to you, we are going to write them to the state level. So there is some work at a local level that has to be done because we don't know Augusta the way you do. So those things that are very, very specific to the city of Augusta, you're going to have to put those in. The good thing is through an implementation process that we have the ability to do, we can become that force multiplier and take that Augusta content, add it to the content we have, bring it all together, working with the chief and his staff. We will meet with him once a week, and we actually help him author that policy and get it into the exact language he wants before it's issued out to the members of the organization. So we're able to really walk along, create that new policy manual form, and then moving forward, we continue to monitor that environment. There again, our attorneys will watch. If anything affects the way the fire service does business in Georgia, they analyze it. They figure whether or not we need to create a new policy, revise an existing one, what it should look like, and then we get it out to the agency to issue out. Not only that, we're going to go back into that manual and we're going to create training. So we actually author and create scenario-based training for the organization for the policy and procedure manual for their members. They get 15 a month. We push it out to the organization. There again, the organization has the ability to customize or tweak the scenarios. They can even create their own. We'll show them. So now not only are the members having access to this information 24/7, they are getting it substantiated with training with practical application on the understanding, which will increase your operational consistency and then also offer and lend to officer confidence within the organization because then they have a true understanding of what the projected goal is for the policies. And then, like I said, we're going to continue to update that for you. We have an acknowledgement side of it, so what we'll do is anytime a policy is issued or revision is issued, we have the ability to capture that the member has read the policy through the application. When they hit a button that says acknowledge, we capture that digital signature, so now we have that date time stamp that the member has read that particular revision or policy. Also, the completion of those daily training bulletins will track that. And anytime that a policy is revised, we'll archive the old version of that policy for the organization as well. So now through the reporting platform, you have the ability to pull all that information out and extract it in the future if needed. The policy as it was written on the specific date in question, whether or not a particular employee read that policy, and then how many training bulletins they did on that particular version. So it really helps protect the organization, the city, but even more importantly, it protects that member and gives them the information that they need to be successful in the event that somebody's questioning whether or not the legitimacy of what they had conducted on a scene. And then as far as the support services, our company focuses on customer support. So not only moving forward are we going to update policies, if the chief has any questions about some existing policies he has in place or some ideas of what he wants to move towards to try to create a new work environment within the organization, he has the ability to reach out to us. We can leverage the over 9,000 agencies that work with us to try to get him some ideas and bring those things together and help him develop some things moving forward in the future. So just know we have those and we're able to leverage all of our customers as well as part of that annual updating. Just to kind of identify a few things that we help you cover. So social media, very hot topic, right? First Amendment, freedom of speech issues in that, so we cover that for you. Photography and electronic imaging, phones, cell phones on scenes and incidents, active shooter, standards of conduct, and it kind of overwrote on the slide when they got converted. The last one we talked about is tactical withdrawal. So one of the challenges that public safety is facing right now is the fact that when fire and EMS are responding to these calls, increasingly they are becoming threatened by members on that call. So having a policy in place that gives clear direction on when is it okay to withdraw from that scene based on the safety that you have for your members, and then even more importantly and more of a hard question is when is it okay to leave a patient. But those things need to be identified so they have very, very clear direction on that. So with those policies, and we come on board, we get you a new policy manual in place. We're able to help you reduce risk within the organization. And some of the studies that we've done, conducted in other states, we've actually shown we're 37% fewer claims as far as policy procedure goes, significant reduction in the amount of litigated claims, and then the severity of claims, of course, is reduced, and then, of course, incurred cost is also reduced as a result of the reduced claims in moving forward. Here's just a list. We always get asked, well, what other customers are we doing business with in the state of Georgia? This is only a few, but these are ISO Class 1 customers like the Augusta Fire Department is. So just to let you know, not only are we helping you on risk reduction, we're also helping the organization maintain that being in line with ISO as far as a policy and procedure standpoint goes, so we can help you continue to maintain that Class 1 rating. And then we have the ability to offer some funding as well. So Lexipol is one of the qualified expenditures under the American Rescue Plan. We have a whole grants team that has outlined on matrices on how that works. We provided that information to the chief, not only for those one-time implementation costs where we're able to come in and help, but also with the annual subscriptions where we're going to continue to update to include multi-year contracts with some organizations doing 3 and 5 years to allow some time to create the line item in the budget. They were just able to leverage those monies that were available immediately. And just a brief overview of why it applies, because of the COVID-related policies we have, infectious disease, respiratory protection training, personal protective equipment, and several others. You know, the social distancing, because they have access to the app, we're able to be a qualified cost for the American Rescue Plan funding. Do y'all have any questions about Lexipol, the policies of the company? Yes, and to kind of back up to what Chief was talking about, with it being a comprehensive, we will come in with the chief and we will literally go line by line on every page and every word that he has within his policy manual and get him up to date and where he needs to be and make sure it's legally defensible moving forward. So, thank you.
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Garrett?
Thank you, Chairman. This question is for Chief, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Chief, thank you for bringing this update to us, and it's good to see the plan moving forward with new policies and procedures. Really, the only question that I have is, what is your timeline for implementing everything that we've heard here today?
I guess that process would need to be vetted and established and working and moving forward with Lexipol. So we'd like to begin immediately, if possible.
Okay, and once it's all approved, then what's the implementation look like?
So typical start to finish on a project like this is about 6 to 8 months, depending on the amount of work. We can work as fast as the organization can. However, the caveat to that is, as policies and procedures are completed individually, they can go ahead and be issued out to the members so they start seeing the new manual instead of dumping, you know, a complete manual in everybody's lap in a year, and then they're having to really catch up so they can get it in digestible doses throughout the implementation process.
All right, thank you. And Chairman, one last question for the administrator. Just in looking at this, is it going to be awkward having a separate PPM for the fire department than what the county is currently using?
So I think for the most part, the focus is on their SOPs, but what we have seen, literally, I was in a meeting with the mayor yesterday with the other hub cities. What some of them have done is created separate PPMs just for their public safety officials. Others have decided not to, and I think a couple of them actually have worked with Lexipol, and again, some have decided to, some have decided not to, and the advice that we got was to lean on your legal department before you make that decision. So I think we'll likely do the same here based on what they come up with.
Certainly, Commissioner, and I'll only add that our PPM, all of our policies and procedures would connect and coincide with our PPM. Our 3PM, I'm sorry, our 3PM.
I knew what you meant. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Administrator.
Thank you, Chief, and Mr. Hanson, we appreciate that. And I'd like to recognize Chief Shaw out here. Thank you for your service as well. You're a great asset, and thank you for what you do. No objections, like to receive that as information.
Yes, sir. Item number 7, enhancing capacity and improved service delivery in Augusta Fire.
Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon once again, Mr. Chairman and Honorable Commission. Just wanted to really bring this update to you as information and how we are moving Augusta Fire forward. And so fire departments nationwide are structured much like the incident command system and operating under a span of control. Our department, the way it exists today, we have 19 fire stations, as you know, with only 2 battalions. We have a shift commander that's performing dual roles. And so simply put, we're stretched thin. Operating in such a fashion manifests itself in several different ways. And so this move will move us towards putting structure back into the department. What's most important to me is protecting our firefighters while providing emergency service. That's paramount. This change will allow us to re-examine our deployment model, among other things, and also it'll create a promotional opportunity for our men and women in the department.
Chief, if I can ask you a question.
Sure.
How short are you on staffing now?
In terms of staffing, as you know, Commissioner, to address staffing in the fire department, you're looking at 6 months. Fire training is about 6 months. We had a class of 20 that started last week. We're looking to open up our hiring next month to begin that process for our next class. And so I think historically the department has maintained about 40 vacancies, but we're looking to make huge strides in overcoming those vacancies.
Okay, good. One more question. Were you able to get a second trainer?
In our training division?
Yes.
Well, as you know, a department our size, and I've said this many times, having only one person in training, trying to not only train recruits, but provide other training for the department, it really hinders. It's typically not the way departments are set up. And so, no, we weren't able to get those additional positions, but we're taking steps within our budget to increase our staff in training.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate this today. And I think I'm gonna say this. I hope I can speak for everybody to say that we really appreciate the way that you, your department, and your firefighters responded. That when we had policy issues that needed to be corrected, that y'all moved forward and did that. Thank you for the morale of our men and women in our fire department. It has increased tremendously, and that's due to leadership from within. You're smart enough to know that you need to reach out for other experts to come in to help you, and that's more than a plus. And so we just thank you for your service. Thank you to your men and women in your department, and thank you to everybody that tries to help in the job. It's highly appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
And I'd like to take the information without objection.
Yes, sir.
And with no further business before the public safety, this meeting is adjourned. Y'all have a good day.
Addendum item? I'm just messing with you.